What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 11 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And we are just about an hour removed from Thursday Night Football, the first game of the season, where the Kansas City Chiefs just lost to the Detroit Lions. So, Mike, congratulations. The Raiders are in a three-way tie for first in the West Division, and Kansas City is currently in last in the entire NFL. This must be a dream for you.
This is exactly what I was always hoping for. This is what I've been waiting for this entire offseason, was this moment right here.
Yeah, not to see the Raiders play, but to see the Chiefs lose.
Yeah,
I think it's been a long time coming. But one thing I'll say is if the Raiders beat the Broncos on Sunday, and we'll talk about that, in just a little bit here. But if the Raiders beat the Broncos on Sunday and the Chargers lose, the Raiders are at the top of that mountain in the AFC West. How about that?
They have the potential to be the only 1-0 team in the AFC West. And then they would have a week 2 matchup against the Bills, which would be a lot of fun. So all I know, I was literally just talking to my dad about that. All I know is we need to win this game because the Bills are going to be tough.
Hey, after week 1, you're going to be like, stop the count for the AFC West.
Yeah. Just one win and we're into the playoffs. That's all we need,
Yeah. It didn't work out so well for the last team that I'm sure that finished the season with one win. But we'll see if it works out for the Raiders this year, huh?
Yeah, that's not what I meant, but you know what I mean. Yeah. I meant one game,
Yeah, but we'll go through this show one topic at a time. How about that? And let's talk about the 49ers agreeing to a contract extension with Nick Bosa. Let me go ahead and share my screen here because Adam Schefter broke the news. I want to say it was yesterday. So per Adam Schefter, so a source has indicated Nick Bosa has agreed to a 5-year, $170 million extension with the San Francisco 49ers, including $122.5 million guaranteed by a wide margin. It will make him the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. So I'm just glad
Adam Schefter is like well known for horrible punctuation. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was like by a wide margin. I was like I guess it makes sense why he has terrible punctuation because he's trying to get it out as fast as he can, but look as professional. Yeah, he's just like probably got carpal tunnel and fuck autocorrect. But I mean, he pays for Twitter Blue, so he could always edit it, but he doesn't have time for that. As a 49er fan, I'm just glad that this fucking thing is over. Like, it has really been like a very cloudy offseason, and there's just been so much negativity around the team. And this finally feels like, some of the clouds are starting to pass over, and we'll see if Nick Bosa is in shape and ready to go Sunday. I assume that he will be because Kyle Shanahan said that as long as he doesn't have a beer belly, that he should be able to go. And they asked him how many snaps he would get, and Shanahan said how many snaps are in a game. So I just hope they don't run him into the ground a little bit too early, but I think they'll probably ease him in and get him in on some key passing situations. Um, and hopefully Steve Wilkes has a pretty good idea on how the defense is going to look, adding Nick Bosa, since this is his first time being the defensive coordinator. But other than that, I mean, this is averaging out at about 34 million per year. And honestly, I mean, the way that Nick Bosa was holding out, I was expecting him to get more than 35 million per year. Right.
What's the second highest average per year? Is it, assuming that's Aaron Donald.
It's probably Aaron Donald. Let me look it up.
I want to say he's at either 31 or 33.
Paid non-QBs. Aaron Donald's at 31.7 per season.
So if he is the second highest paid, and maybe it's somebody else, but I can't think of who that would be. I feel like 34 is probably right at, if not a little above, what I expected. Like, as far as resetting the market, maybe it's because it's defensive end and not defensive tackle. But as far as resetting the market, like usually these guys, they just barely jump the previous guy. But this one, it's like, it's $3 million more, per year. So it's a sizable contract, that's for sure. And I'm curious to see what Chris Jones gets from the Chiefs.
Yeah, so Chris Jones probably might get a little bit more on par with Aaron Donald, because I mean, Chris Jones is more of an interior guy, and so is Donald. And, Nick Bosa is that edge rusher. So Bosa got like the Joey Bosa treatment, and, he reset the market. And I mean, Joey Bosa got signed how many years ago? So like with the cap rising and with inflation, this is kind of on par with that contract, I would say.
Yeah. One last point. Bosa gets a $50 million signing bonus. And of course he's averaging 34 million per year. Of course, that might be split apart differently per year, but $122.5 million guaranteed, right? So tell me, Josh, which deal would you rather have? Which deal is a better value? Nick Bosa or Max Crosby? And let me give you Max Crosby's numbers first. Max Crosby's deal was a 4-year, essentially $95 million deal. It was adding on to his original $3 million that he already had. So it came out to 98.98, his number, $1 million over 4 years. $23.5 million per year versus Nick Bosa's 34. $53 million guaranteed. Bear in mind, Nick Bosa has $122 million guaranteed, and his signing bonus was $50 million.
So my answer for the better deal is none of the above. I'm going to go Brock Purdy, making less than $1 million per year. Now
that helps.
Yeah,
that helps.
I think clearly Max Crosby is like the better bang for your buck. Like, I don't even think it's that close. Like, the difference is $10 million, and they're pretty comparable players. It took me a couple years to admit it, but
right.
Just seeing the way Max Crosby has developed into this top tier pass rusher, I kind of felt like Nick Bosa was that, like, from day one, and maybe Max Crosby was, but I was just kind of blind to it. But
no, I think Bosa was day one, and Max Crosby kind of came on. But yeah, it's a silly question. I was just doing it kind of to be a troll for a second. But Crosby took a pretty very team friendly deal.
It was very team friendly.
Yeah, whereas Nick Bosa was, looking out to reset the market, and I don't blame him at all. I do believe, and I've said it before on this podcast, I think he is the best defensive end in football. And I think Crosby's right in there with him. But this makes sense, and I love Crosby's deal for the Raiders. So
yeah, Crosby is absolutely a top 5 defensive end in football. Like,
yeah,
you could, I would say that the other names that I would have there, along with, Bosa and Crosby, would be Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Although Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are a little bit lower on the list, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about names that you could maybe include in like the top 10.
I know there's one other defensive end. I'm just totally
I'm
at a
blanking on
loss
it
of who.
too. That's why
Yeah.
I went with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa.
Yeah. But all else. Oh, Michael Parsons.
Oh, there we
Even though
go.
I mean
Yeah,
he kind of some people think he's a linebacker, but
he's
all
going
I
to
will
get
say.
paid next year.
Oh yeah. Last thing I'll say on this. It was never a doubt in my mind. Nick Bosa was not going anywhere. He's just you can't give up a player of his stature. This deal had to get done. I think really I'm just curious how this affects the roster construction in the years following for this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I forgot to write this down like as a topic, but I guess I'll bunch it in with this anyway. So there was also news that the 49ers restructured George Kittle and Trent Williams in order to clear, I think, like about 17 to 20 something million in cap space.
Mm.
And I found it interesting because the day before I saw like the cap numbers of the 49ers top paid players, and then Bosa obviously signed his 34 million per year deal. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, Trent Williams might retire in a couple years here, so that they might be able to not have to give that chunk of the cap to him. And then Kittle might be on the way out in a couple years, because he's just sort of aging, and he's got all these like lower body injuries, and it's just the way that football works. I think like the average football career is like 3 years, and if you last longer, you have a pretty good career in the NFL. But one thing I'll say is them restructuring them, I think pushes their money down the line.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a very risky move, and the 49ers have to win soon, or else they're not going to be able to afford, at least with the way that the cap is currently constructed at its current, number. They're not going to be able to afford to add top tier talent to the team. So if you're aging, if your superstars are sort of on the decline, it's a very risky move.
Yeah. Yeah, the Raiders did the same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo, actually. And I think it essentially makes his contract pretty well guaranteed for next season, which I think it already, for the most part, was. But, they cleared like $23 million in cap space for this season. And I was sitting there like, well, what for? Like, there's no way they were $22 million under the cap,
Mm-hmm.
But that's apparently what these moves were for, is to get above the cap before the season, and I guess be prepared to maybe sign other players throughout the season. So
Yeah, sign other players or be ready for a trade, because I think the 49ers are absolutely in win now mode.
yeah,
And you never know if a guy goes down and you have to replace them. So you just trade and have to be able to sign them.
yeah,
And then also maybe the 49ers maybe they restructured it in a way that a guy like Brandon Ayuk can get signed next season if he breaks out. But I mean, other than that, I think we can start to talk about the rest of the 49ers team, and we'll jump right into the 53-man roster. So I'm going to go ahead and share the 49ers website. They have a position by position breakdown of the initial 53-man roster. Let me start at the top. Hold on. I jumped the gun a little bit. So the quarterbacks, you have Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, and Brandon Allen. So Brandon Allen couldn't make it to picture day, unfortunately. But obviously Purdy the starter, Darnold the backup, and Brandon Allen will probably be the emergency quarterback on game days. At running back, we've got Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Ty Davis-Price, Jordan Mason, and Kyle Juszczyk. Juszczyk is the fullback, and then they decided to carry 4 running backs this year. Honestly, I think the 49ers have a pretty solid running back room. Like Christian McCaffrey is like elite, top of the NFL food chain, I would say, in terms of like running backs. And then Elijah Mitchell is a pretty solid number 2 back. He's going to be the more in between the tackles guy. But one thing I'm looking for to see is if Ty Davis Price or Jordan Mason can, steal that role from him, because I feel like Mason and Davis Price are a little bit more durable, and the 49ers can count on them a little bit more than Mitchell. And another thing is Davis Price has yet to like prove much. I know Mason has looked pretty good in a couple games, but as of late, he's been fumbling. I think he fumbled once or twice in the preseason, and I've heard he's fumbled a couple times in camp. So you definitely don't want to see that. Maybe that's why they have it listed, sort of in this order. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But Kyle Juszczyk, there's a chance that this might be his last year on the team because of financial reasons. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that moving forward. The wide receivers, we've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, Danny Gray, and Ronnie Bell. One thing I was very interested to see was that Ray McLeod, obviously he made the team, and he is going to be playing week 1. So he was initially supposed to be out for 8 weeks. And I want to say that this happened like around the first preseason game. So it's been 4 weeks, and dude is like ready to catch like punts and return kicks. Like, I mean, okay, but he better not be fumbling the football if somebody hits that wrist. That's something that I would be concerned about. And, Ronnie Bell is listed, at least in terms of this, as, last on the depth chart. I really feel like Ronnie Bell really showed something in the preseason, especially against the Broncos. And, we'll see if he's able to continue to climb the depth chart. But he sort of reminded me of what maybe Jalen Hurd was supposed to be a couple years ago on the team. But, we'll move on to the tight ends. So George Kittle, Ross Dwelly, Braden Willis, and Charlie Warner. One thing that's sort of surprising here is that Cam Latu is not listed. He was the 3rd-round rookie out of Alabama, and Latu had sort of a rough camp, and he had a lot of dropping. He couldn't catch the football consistently. So the 49ers have placed him on IR, so that's going to be season ending, and he didn't make the team, so he's going to sort of get like the red shirt treatment. I'm trying, I know that there's got to be another 49er player recently who got that sort of that red shirt treatment. I know Aaron Banks, I don't think he went on IR, but he didn't really play his rookie season and then came back the following year and was able to, step into a starting role. I don't think Latu is going to be the 49ers long-term starter at tight end, especially with the fact that they restructured Kittle's contract. So, I mean, we'll see what the future entails for Latu, but he's definitely going to have to come into camp next year willing to fight, because I feel like he's sort of on the outside looking in for next year.
Is Latu on the practice squad, or?
He's on IR, so I don't know if you're able to sign guys to the practice squad when they're on IR.
Sorry, I got distracted because I saw the Joker tattoo, which is really good on his arm right there.
Yeah, let's see if I can zoom in. Oh shit. Yeah, it is pretty good. He's got the Joker tattooed on one of his wrists, and then he's got Master Chief like on the other one.
Nice.
Or it might be on the same wrist, but just on the other side. But I feel like it's really cool. And then I know he's got like Calvin and Hobbes tattooed somewhere. But yeah, Kittle's tattoos are pretty cool. So next we've got the offensive line. And we've got Trent Williams at left tackle, Aaron Banks left guard, Jake Brendel center, Spencer Burford right guard, Colton McKivitz right tackle. And then your backups are Jalen Moore, John Feliciano, Matt Pryor, and Nick Zakel. So one player that I'm very shocked that didn't make the 53-man roster and got actually taken by I want to say it was the Arizona Cardinals, was Ilm Manning. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had Grant Cohn on our show, and Grant was telling us that a player that really stood out to him during the Raider joint practices was Ilm Manning, and during the preseason, Ilm Manning had a lot of plays where it seemed like, man, he might be able to be a starting lineman in just a couple years. Like maybe if he takes some time to develop, but he looked like he could at least be a backup. And the 49ers decided to roll with the guys that they obviously chose. And I know Nick Zakelj got he's it's kind of a surprise that he's still on the team, because it seemed like he was having a rough time, at least against the Raiders. I know that there was at least one play that I saw where he tripped over somebody else's foot, and people give him a hard time about it. But I'm just hoping that none of the starters go down, because I will not be easy with any. I won't be easy with Purdy under center, and it'll be tough to run the football if you don't have all 5 of these starters. And we'll see how McKivitz is replacing McGlinchey, but I'm hoping to see. I think we'll definitely see an upgrade in pass protection, because I don't think that was Mike McGlinchey's strong suit. You can see a whole lot of plays where McGlinchey's like, struggling, and we've went through a video like from 2020 of his struggles, and I wish Mike McGlinchey well on the Broncos, but it was time to move on. So let's see if Colton McKivitz can be an upgrade, maybe the same way that Tom Compton was in 2021 when McGlinchey went down. On the defensive line, we have Javon Kinlaw, another guy that people weren't certain was going to make the team. But I feel like Kinlaw, after the Raider game, started to improve. He just needs to keep his pad level down. But we'll see. I know he's not the starting defensive tackle. The starting defensive line you're going to see is actually, I believe it's going to be Drake Jackson, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, and Nick Bosa. So I actually wonder who the 49ers had to waive or are going to have to waive in order to include Nick Bosa in the list of names here. But let me just read them off. We've also got Cleveland Farrell, Kevin Givens, Robert Beal Jr., and Kalia Davis for the defensive line. Maybe it's similar to the whole Josh Jacobs situation that you were telling me about, Mike, where Jacobs doesn't technically count against the roster yet because he wasn't reporting to practice.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. So linebackers, we've got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, the two badasses right here. And then for, the third linebacking spot, we're going to have to see who will step up between Oren Burks and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. And then I think D. Winters and Jalen Graham are just there for depth, but you never know. The 49ers are really good at scouting linebacker. I'm really surprised that Marcelino McCrary-Ball didn't make the team. But I sort of forget if he's on the practice squad. I don't think he is. I think he might have. There's a chance that he went to another team already. So that was a guy that I think I told you a couple weeks ago, Mike, that the Raiders should keep an eye on in case the 49ers cut. So cornerbacks, we've got Charvarius Ward, Samuel Womack, Diamador Lenore, Ambry Thomas, and Isaiah Oliver. So Oliver, a lot of people were surprised and made the team because Oliver really struggled throughout the preseason, and Oliver was Steve Wilkes' guy. I think I don't necessarily know Oliver's contract specifics, but it seemed like they brought him in and they had the idea that Oliver was going to be the starting nickel, but he was okay in Atlanta. Like, I don't know if he was like really that special. I didn't really pay attention that much, but it seemed like he needed to, I mean, I guess I'll put this in a nice way. He's got to get used to the 49ers and the way they do things over here on defense. But it's kind of weird because he's had Steve Wilkes as a coach before. And, maybe Steve Wilkes is sort of trying to not change up a lot with the 49ers system. So maybe it is a slightly different system than Oliver has been used to in the past. And then Ambry Thomas made it. I think, he had a pretty solid preseason. And I expect Diamador Lenore to be the other starting cornerback opposite of Charvarius Ward. And we'll see with Womack. Talanoa Hufunga, for the safeties, Talanoa Hufunga, Tayshaun Gibson, George Odom, and Jair Brown. So I think I heard that Gibson might not be ready for week 1. So I fully expect Jair Brown to slide right into that role. Jair Brown was the 3rd round rookie, right, Mike?
Yes, he was your 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I know you thought he was a pretty good player, and it seemed like Jair Brown had a couple plays where he showed flashes in the preseason, and I'm just hoping for good solid depth. Because Gibson, I'm pretty confident that as long as, unless Jair Brown shows to be like a ball hawk and an all pro, I think Gibson has proven in the NFL for several years now that he just has he has an act for getting turnovers. So, getting a lot of interceptions. I don't know the exact number, but Gibson, I think, is up there with turnovers at the safety position throughout his tenure in the NFL. So, specialists, we got Jake Moody, Mitch Wishnowsky, and Tabor Pepper. Moody the kicker, Wishnowsky the punter, Pepper the long snapper, and that's about it. Yeah, hopefully Moody can be more consistent than he showed in the preseason, but we'll see. He's a rookie kicker. Harbaugh vouched for him when he was at Michigan, and I think that he got iced in the Raider game twice, and then he got hurt in the second game. But the 49ers might need to call Robbie Gould.
Yeah, we'll definitely see after week 1.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Shrey, I see your comment. We're going to get to it just a little bit later in the show. So, stay tuned. We appreciate you checking out the stream. Right now, I'm going to go over the 49ers team captains. So, Mike, you have the list, right? I think I remember the team captains, but I want to say it was Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner, and then 2 more. There's 2 more.
Everything you said is correct. The last 2 are George Kittle and Trent Williams.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, George Kittle and Trent Williams. Sorry, I didn't have it pulled up ahead of me. But it's pretty self-explanatory, like with the starters. Like, I feel like the 49ers are all in with Purdy, and although I've wanted them to be all in with Trey Lance in the past, Trey Lance is no longer with the team. Brock Purdy's here, and it seems like the whole team is behind him, and it seems like he's ready to roll. They trust him, and Purdy is going to, I think he's going to exceed at least the expectations of the NFL, because I want to say they rolled out a list of ranking the starting quarterbacks, and I'm not sure who laid out this list, but Purdy was towards the bottom, if not 32nd, which I find crazy, because last season he led the offense to the highest efficiency in the NFL during his time playing. So it was like night and day Purdy versus Jimmy Garoppolo in the Niners offense last year. But we'll get to the Niners practice squad. So let me stop sharing this, and I'm going to go ahead and share another screen of the practice squad players. So we've got on the defensive line, Alex Barrett, Marlon Davidson, and T.Y. McGill. And there might have been one more. No. Fullback, Jack Coletto. Wide receivers, we got Chris Conley and Tay Martin. I forgot to mention it, but I feel like both those receivers actually played pretty well in the preseason. But on a stacked team like the 49ers, there's just like there is no room to be able to stash these players on the roster. And then luckily they were able to make it to the practice squad. Also Willie Snead, but Willie Snead is like more of a veteran, and Isaiah Winstead, he's a rookie, but he went undrafted. So I don't think he got like a lot of looks out of a lot of teams, but he is like a big body receiver who the 49ers, I don't know if they'll ever be able to give him a chance just with how deep the wide receiver room, has turned out to be. But, he's a player that I've seen a couple, plays on social media that he's made. And he just looks like a guy like, I'm trying to think of like, tall receivers in the past who have just like, you've been able to throw it up to them and they can make something happen. That's sort of the vibe that I got from Winstead just from watching the videos. But, at the NFL level, it takes more than just size, right?
Yeah. Maybe like a Tyrell Williams with the Raiders and the Chargers,
Yeah. So I'm just going to go over the remaining names that I didn't name off before. Tight end Troy Fumagalli, offensive lineman Alfredo Gutierrez, the guy that I think the 49ers are just keeping for marketing reasons, unfortunately. Running back Brian Hill, cornerback Quantrez Knight. I was actually a little surprised that he didn't make the team. Offensive lineman Corey Luciano, linebacker Curtis Robinson, and cornerback Trey Swilling, and offensive lineman Leroy Watson IV. So that's the practice squad. And, I don't know if you have any thoughts about, maybe the 49ers depth chart, Mike, but, anything glaring about maybe the captains or anything? Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, as far as the captains, the glaring omission is Nick Bosa, but that makes sense because he's been missing this whole camp. Then again, I mean, we'll get to the Raiders, but they voted Josh Jacobs a captain. So I don't know. I figured no matter what, Nick Bosa will end up being a captain by the end of the season. So as far as the roster, I mean, keeping 4 tight ends is pretty interesting. I didn't notice any like in previous episodes I had been kind of curious, or I guess my question for the Niners was like, do they have a depth issue? But I mean, looking at the depth, like I don't think it's that bad. I think they have players at many positions that can step up if needed. I think at corner they have some guys. At safety they have, like you said, Jair Brown. Like you said, the offensive line should get a little better. And personally, I think John Feliciano is a very nice guy to have because he can go and play different positions for you on the interior. So he's a good backup to have. And then you have a lot of running back depth, So
I feel like any running back on this team could go somewhere else and make an impact.
For sure that, but also just this offensive scheme that Shanahan runs, like it's always a run heavy team, so they could get out to a big lead and then McCaffrey can kind of chill out and they can put in Jordan Mason, or I'm forgetting the guy's name that was a 3rd round pick a year ago or whatever.
Ty Davis Price.
Yeah, or of course Elijah Mitchell if he's not injured. So
Yeah, but we know Shanahan. He doesn't take the foot off the gas pedal, and I don't really think that he sort of believes in garbage time because he doesn't. I feel like where he can grow as a coach is assessing risk and reward because the 49ers were blowing out Detroit in week 1 a couple years ago when it was Dan Campbell's first year as a head coach. And granted the Lions started to come back, but it was like, the Niners had to fumble and really like sort of cough up the game a little bit. But you lose your top corner that year in Jason Verrett by keeping him out there for too long. Like it was like, the score was like they were up by like 3 touchdowns or something, like going into the fourth quarter.
That reminds me of the Colts game for Derek Carr when he fractured his fibula. It was like the game was over. That's the worst feeling is when the game's over and somebody gets a major injury.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Are we ready to move on to the Raiders?
I believe we are.
Yeah. All right. Take it away, Mike.
All right. Let me pull up. Well, all right. First off, the Raiders have a 54-man roster. Why? Why not 53? From what I understand, yeah, our GM can't count. No. Apparently, Josh Jacobs was granted to be on an exempt list, not by Josh's request, but by the Raiders' request. So I'm assuming it's just for this, some point of this week, and then they'll have to make a move to get that down to 53. My assumption has been, until they started practicing this week, that they would just put Brandon Faison, the corner, on IR because he's been injured all of camp. I just figured you get into week 1 after that cut day and the signing day when the waivers run through, and you can put players on IR, and now it's not the entire season, it's just 4 weeks, right? So that would put us down to 53. We're set to go. But from what I understand, they haven't made any moves yet, so they're still at 54. So before I get into the actual 54-man roster, I just want to talk about some guys that got cut on cut day. Number 1 for me, I don't really understand this. I mean, I guess I kind of do. But they cut Duke Shelley. And I don't know. I felt like he was doing better than David Long. But David Long made the team instead. And David Long was injured and out for multiple weeks, in training camp. So, yeah.
Let me tell you why they cut Duke Shelley. It's because the Niners scored a damn touchdown on that play that he should have broken up. That was the exact reason.
Yeah, well, really, when you watch, obviously, I know you're being sarcastic, but when you watch the play, it's like that play was a good reason to keep him. Like,
yeah,
it was a very heads-up play. Yeah. He gave a couple passes against the Cowboys. I don't know. Maybe during camp was a different story. And, maybe once David Long came back, it was clear to them, like, oh, he just fits better. I don't know. But that was a little curious to me. I think a fan favorite as far as undrafted free agents go, Drake Thomas, the linebacker, got cut. A lot of people thought that he was going to make the team. I wasn't so confident, but I thought it was a good, there was a good chance. But they cut him. He gets claimed by the Seahawks. So
it's always the fucking Seahawks, dude.
Yeah. They also cut Jordan Willis, and as the days go on, I get more and more upset about that. And we'll explain why later. They cut Philip Dorsett. He ended up signing with the Broncos. They cut Netani Muti, but he came back on the practice squad. They cut Alex Bars, who started like 13 games last season at right guard. He got outright beat out by, I'm forgetting his name, Van Roten at right guard. Matthew Butler, I want to say 5th-round pick from last year, got cut. And then Neil Farrell, defensive tackle, I want to say he was the 4th-round pick. It might have been the other way around, but he gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 6th-round pick in next year's draft. So,
I just have to say, thank God that he's no longer on the Raiders, because every time I hear his name, Doodle Bob pops in my head. I've already told you this on a previous episode, but I just hear Doodle Bob say his name.
Neil Farrell.
No, but all jokes aside, it's pretty sad, but at least he found a team that wanted him with the Chiefs.
Yeah, it was a point that I had made before, but I just felt like the defensive tackle room was like really deep, and they just drafted a 3rd-round guy in Byron Young, and they also had a 7th-round pick in Nesta Jade Silvera, who apparently was making strides in camp and turning heads. So I think they decided to run with those rookies rather than these 2 second-year guys, and other than that, go with veterans at the position. So let me actually look at the roster. I'm just going to go kind of position by position. I know you have a picture.
Yeah, I'm going to pull
a website.
Up. Yeah.
But I'm kind of going to go a little different than the website. That's the depth chart.
On Raiders.com.
Yeah, I'm going to start at quarterback. So they kept 3. That was a question I had. Were they going to keep Brian Hoyer or not? So Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell. Pretty obvious. Nothing really to say there. At running back, Josh Jacobs is in the building. We are ready for week 1. Although the whole exempt list thing is curious, but Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden. Pretty much the same thing. Like nothing really to say there. I think Amir Abdullah is going to be a pass catching specialist for this team. Maybe early on in the season, weeks 1 and 2, they might kind of ease Josh Jacobs a little bit more because he's been out this whole time. Maybe we see a little bit more Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, and even Brandon Bolden, during the Broncos and Bills games. Fullback, Jacob Johnson, nothing really to say there. Wide receiver, I know they have it in 2 different spots, but I'll start with the top ones. They have Devontae Adams, and they kept Christian Wilkerson. That was the guy sort of, battling it out with Philip Dorsett, Cam Sims, and Keelan Cole. You could see it in the Cowboys game and the Rams game. Christian Wilkerson he was the guy Aiden O'Connell was just looking at. So I think he led the entire preseason in catches. So
like in the entire NFL?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But don't.
It makes sense. O'Connell was lighting it up.
Yeah, that Cowboys game, I think he caught like 8 catches. So
pretty solid.
Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, DeAndre Carter. He's also going to be the return specialist. Christian Wilkerson, like I said, and Trey Tucker, the rookie 3rd-round pick. At tight end, they kept Austin Hooper as a starter, Michael Mayer, of course, and then Jesper Horsted. I didn't mention him, but they cut, as far as, shocking cuts, I guess. Not shocking, but just I was curious with Cole Fotheringham. No, OJ Howard was long ago. Cole Fotheringham was a undrafted free agent who really showed out against the Niners. But I didn't notice him as much as the preseason went on, so.
I guess I'll never be able to make that thumbnail.
Fotheringham, yeah. Well, he is on the practice squad, so he might run it back next year.
Yeah. So Hooper's the starter? Sorry to cut you off. Hooper's the starter?
Yeah, you're good. Yes, Hooper's the starter. That's what I expected early on. I think as the season progresses, Michael Mayer will probably demand more and more targets and, snaps. They may not actually admit it unless an injury occurs. But I think by midseason, Michael Mayer will become the starter. But But we'll see. I mean, it might just be like a 1-2 punch, and then Horsted comes in for blocking downs, rushing downs. So, you sent me that video of Crosby. I feel like you could show it if possible. I'll keep going while you look for it.
Okay. All right.
Left tackle. At left tackle, obviously Colton Miller. They kept Justin Herron as the backup. I mean, it's good to have a backup left tackle, so I'm fine with it. Although I think, if Colton Miller has been a stalwart, he has remained healthy for this team, and I mean, knock on wood, I hope he stays healthy because he's very important to this offense.
I've got the video pulled up.
Sweet. But I just part of me was thinking like, okay, you could cut Herron if he's really not that good, and just if worse come to worse, you could put Jermaine Illuminor at a left tackle and Thayer Mumford at right. Go ahead and throw that video on. We're talking about Michael Mayer.
Yeah, so this is the video that got Michael Mayer pushed down to back up behind Austin Hooper. So let me go ahead and share this.
Hey, watch this.
The noise that it makes, the slam.
Yeah.
It's the slam.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough. That's how you teach a rookie a thing or two.
Yeah, that's like a cutaway in a movie where they go, yeah, Uncle Billy, or I guess Uncle Michael used to play football, but it didn't go so well. They fucking cut away.
Yeah. But funny enough, that was the practice where apparently he was going up against Crosby a lot, and he got quote unquote beat up. And then like the next week he missed practice due to injuries. So
yeah, so Crosby,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, at the beginning of the episode, we said that Crosby took a team-friendly deal, but he doesn't seem so team-friendly at practice.
Yeah. Well, hey man, Crosby's setting a tempo,
Yeah.
Setting a standard. I don't know, but
match my intensity or get the fuck off the field.
Exactly. So left guard, the only left guard that they have is Dylan Parham, the starter. At center, same thing, only Andre James. At right guard is Greg Van Roten as the starter. And then the backup is Jordan Meredith. And this is one of the interesting things as far as guys that they kept. On the depth chart here, it has Meredith as the backup left guard, center, and right guard. Yeah. That is very valuable. He played a lot of snaps in the preseason, so clearly he proved himself and earned a spot on this team. And I hope that we don't have to see him on the field, but I'm sure at some points we will. And I hope that he's ready for the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Either they have triplets, from the same mother named Jordan Meredith, or Josh McDaniels is being very snarky, and it's like, so what's your plan for if one of your interior offensive linemen go down? I got several plans. Jordan Meredith. It's what it is. It's like a snobby fucking, it's a little snobby move on the depth chart.
Yeah. So, like I said, right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor and Thayer Mumford. Mumford seems like he's just so close to cracking into becoming the starter. Illuminor only has 1 year on his deal. I could see Thayer Mumford being the starter next year. Potentially, they let Jermaine walk, and it's a battle between Thayer Mumford and Dalton Wagner, who was put in IR for this season. That was before the cut down, so he's out for the season. They hold on to him. They don't even allow him to hit the market. They will have Dalton Wagner next season. So, and that was a guy I was very interested in, and I did not want to see them cut him because I figured somebody would pick him up. And I remember when we went over the draft and everything, I mentioned in our first episode, Dalton Wagner was literally the highest paid undrafted free agent this season or this offseason. So it was a guy from the get go that they were very high on coming out of the draft, and I think clearly they did whatever they could to keep him, which was just stash him on IR. So on to the defense. Left defensive end, if you can scroll down. Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz. And I remember in like our first or second episode, I said that Malcolm Kuntz was a guy who was probably right there between 52 and 54 on the roster. Sounds like, including from people like Grant Cohn, who joined our episode or one of our episodes and talked about it. Malcolm Kuntz was showing out this offseason or this preseason, and he was getting a lot of pressure in the preseason, and he definitely earned his spot on this team. And again, we're going to talk about a certain guy who I'm about to name later in the episode, but I think because of this guy, we're going to be seeing a lot more of Malcolm Kuntz this season. Mm-hmm. So, which brings me to Chandler Jones, that guy that I was talking about at right defensive end. You also have Tyree Wilson sitting behind him. And I would expect to see a lot of Tyree Wilson coming in, on obvious passing downs, when they want to bring in a pass rushing specialist sort of deal. Yeah, like I said, we'll get to Chandler Jones later. Defensive tackle, they kept six defensive tackles, 4 defensive ends, 60 tackles. Again, like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of cutting Jordan Willis. Depending on how everything goes with Chandler Jones, I want to see Jordan Willis on this team, at the very least on the practice squad, but I would be in contact with him. Like, hey, we might need you this Sunday. So anyways, Bilal Mickels, Jerry Tillery, the starters at D-tackle. John Jenkins, the free agent out of Miami. He's a veteran, like, by definition. Like, he's been in the league for at least 7 years. I didn't think he was going to make the team. I figured they were going to go a little younger in the depth, but they kept John Jenkins and they kept Adam Butler, another veteran. And then at the bottom is the 2 rookies from this year's draft class, Byron Young and Nesta J. Silvera. And but I mean, both John Jenkins and Adam Butler were getting some pressure, especially in the Niner game this preseason. And then we didn't even see Tillery or Bilal Mickels, so I think this defense thinks pretty highly about them. So on to linebacker. I've said this before, but on these depth charts, the Raiders have it to where it's 3 linebacker spots: outside linebacker, middle, and outside. I'm pretty sure you're rarely going to see more than 2 linebackers on the field at a time, because they're going to be running a lot of nickel coverages. So I'm just going to kind of I'll go off of what they have. So outside linebacker, they have Robert Spillane and Curtis Bolton. Bolton was a guy that was definitely on the bubble, and right there with Drake Thomas, where I was like, I don't know which guy they keep. But Curtis Bolton got the forced fumble, and he is really, really good on special teams. So I think those things gave him the edge.
Is he related to Nick Bolton, who just played tonight?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Because I was like, damn, did the Raiders let that Bolton guy go and he's this fucking good? I was literally thinking that, like, while watching the Chiefs game, like, just a couple hours ago.
Yeah. No, Nick Bolton, I want to say, was their first-round pick like 2 years ago for the Chiefs. So Curtis Bolton, I want to say, was a Bronco a couple years ago. But I could be wrong on that. And then at middle or inside linebacker, they have Divine Diablo all alone. I'm fairly positive he's going to be wearing the green dot this season. So a lot's going to ride on him. And then at the other outside linebacker position, they have Luke Masterson as the starter and Amari Burney as the backup. And I had no doubt in my mind that Amari Burney was making this team. I thought, if anything, Masterson might have a higher risk of getting cut than Burney, because I really liked what I saw from Burney. And having a pass defending linebacker has been a massive need for this team for so long that any sort of hint of hope that a guy can do that, I would be like, you're staying. So At corner, they have Nate Hobbs starting opposite Marcus Peters, but I'm pretty positive that's not necessarily correct. I'm fairly positive Nate Hobbs will be the nickel corner, and then the starters will be Marcus Peters and fourth-round pick Jacorian Bennett. Along with them is David Long, Amik Robertson, and Brendan Faison. Again, I'm not sure how healthy Faison is. And as far as David Long and Amik Robertson goes, that Cowboy game, if it proved one thing to me, it proved that Amik Robertson deserved to be on this team. And I'm very glad that they kept him. I still am questioning the whole Duke Shelley getting cut instead of David Long, but I'm not a decision maker. I wasn't at practice every day. So, as long as we have the best guys on the roster possible, I'm game. Like, let's just win, And then another thing I think I said episodes ago, but between David Long, Amik Robertson, and Duke Shelley, those are like three corners who are like sitting at around 5'10" in height. So I didn't see it being very possible for them to keep all three of them. So I knew one of them had to go. On to safety. At free safety, we have Trevon Merrick and Isaiah Polamau. And then at strong safety, we have Marcus Epps, Roderick Teamer, another guy that I was pretty confident based off the preseason was going to make this team, and Chris Smith, the fifth-round pick. I figured it would be pretty hard for them to cut a fifth-round pick, but I didn't notice Chris Smith too much, but I think he'll be a special teamer and hopefully develop into a guy that could play some snaps on defense. And then lastly, the obvious last three, Daniel Carlson, AJ Cole, and long snapper Jacob Bobenmeyer. And that's your 54-man roster, baby. Definitely not final, but we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then next up is for the next topic.
Oh, you got to go over the team captains.
Team captains.
Sorry, I thought I was hearing something like outside. That's why I don't know if you saw me like a minute ago. Like I took off my head, like one of my headphones.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good.
That's why it took me a second to scroll down too. But yeah, Mike, tell us about the Raider team captains. Like, how many did they keep?
Yeah, team captains. The Niners had 6. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I think the most they can have is 7.
The Raiders have 9. Maybe that's the most you can have. I don't know who makes the rules for this, but yeah, I mean, last year I want to say the Raiders had like 7 or 8, and I was like, dude, I remember like in 2015 and before that, you couldn't have more than like 5, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I was like fairly positive. Like you can only have so many. And usually what they would do, obviously, is like you'd have like 2 offensive, 2 defensive, and then a special teams captain. But now it's just apparently it's free game.
If I was the coach, you know how many captains I would have?
53.
I would have 53 because on my team, everyone's a captain.
Everybody gets their special star.
Yeah.
So the captains
everyone
for the
gets
Raiders,
a patch.
Captains for the Raiders, the obvious: Jimmy G. I'm going to keep it on offense. Josh Jacobs, even though he was not there at all, but just because he's a returning player and all that, and I think they were all confident he was going to be on the team. So then, and also, of course, they announced the team captains after he was signed. So maybe they just quickly were like, "Oh, let's add that in there." Devontae Adams. This one, I don't remember if he was a captain last year, but this was one that I was definitely curious. Colton Miller got the captain nod. Max Crosby, of course. Robert Spillane at linebacker. And then this one doesn't exactly shock me. And I'm very curious how this guy plays this season because we really didn't get to see much of him in the preseason. Marcus Epps at safety is a captain. This is he along with Robert Spillane. This is their first year on this team. So I think that's interesting. AJ Cole
Kind
and
of
Daniel Carlson are also
it kind of
captains.
reminds me of when Mac Hollins was a captain out of nowhere last year.
Yeah, true. So the biggest non-captains, omissions or whatever you want to call it, when I predicted captains, like one of my buddies texted me like, "Who do you think is going to be the captains?" Like a day or two before it came out, I had most of these guys named, um, besides like Spillane and Epps. Instead of Epps, I had Marcus Peters as a captain, but that didn't happen. And I mostly had that because I had heard so much about like Marcus or Jacorian Bennett and other guys, really leaning on Marcus Peters for his knowledge and such. And then the other guy who was a captain last season, and again, we're going to talk about him, is Chandler Jones. And he's not a captain this year.
I wonder why.
Bear in mind, the team, the roster votes on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I find it interesting. Okay.
Well, the roster may vote on it, but one thing I'll say is I think the way that the 49ers do it on their end of it is that the I think Shanahan provides a list of people to vote for,
Mm,
and then like from there they vote on it. So I don't know if the Raiders do it differently to where like anybody, it's just fair game, or I don't know if Josh
right.
McDaniels picks up like a pool of players, and I wonder if Chandler Jones was one of those players, or if they even do it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, again, as I keep saying, we'll get into Chandler Jones. It's entirely possible that the Raiders told the players like, "Hey, based off of what's going on, we cannot make him a captain," you know. So, um, yeah, but we can move on to the practice squad really quick here. Um, First off, the international player program guy, David Agoha from Nigeria, he made the practice squad, and we said this earlier, but having a player from the international player program grants you the ability to have an extra player on the practice squad.
Mm.
And I think you said this earlier, but maybe it was before the episode.
It was before the stream started, so
Yeah,
you get that extra roster spot on the practice squad that they don't count towards the practice squad. It's not the
okay,
53.
correct. Yeah. I just figured, I was like, there's no way you can have 54, even though the Raiders currently have 54, but that's exempt. That player cannot play right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. So on the practice squad, it makes sense because it's like, oh, we can kind of keep you and teach you, but like you're not going to play, right? Tyler Hall, that was a corner who coming into this season was getting a lot of hype as like a nickel and whatnot, but it came out pretty quick that the Raiders wanted Nate Hobbs at nickel, and that told me pretty quickly like, well, I don't see how you keep Tyler Hall, but keeping him on the practice squad is great. That is great to have. Matthew Butler, that 4th or 5th round pick, whatever he was, I'm pretty sure he was the 5th round pick. Sorry. He is on the practice squad, so he's still within the organization, so that's cool. Natani Muti, back on the practice squad. He was the backup left guard. He started every preseason game other than the Niner game when Dylan Parham got knocked out. Sam Webb, corner, he's on the practice squad. That was a guy that I saw a lot of comments of fans saying like, "Oh man, I was really curious if Sam Webb was going to make the team." He's still young. He has time to develop and possibly make the team next year or this year, depending. Jaden Grant, safety. John Samuel Shanker, tight end. Sincere McCormick, running back. He was making a lot of plays, specifically touchdowns in the preseason, so I like seeing him on the practice squad. Isaac Rochelle, defensive end. He was getting a lot of pressure, I felt, in the preseason, so I like seeing him on the practice squad. And McClendon Curtis, that was another guy that they cut and was kind of like, I was curious to see what happened. McClendon Curtis, the undrafted free agent out of, I want to say, Chattanooga. That was a guy, that got a lot of hype coming out of the
Mm-hmm.
draft. And yeah, he's, as of right now, he's on the practice squad. Hopefully nobody claims him. Cole Fotheringham, the tight end, also on the practice squad. Kanai Mauga, linebacker, on the practice squad. Marquez Callaway, wide receiver. Isaac Darkangelo. This was a guy who was not on the roster at all. I'm pretty sure he's a linebacker. Janarius Robinson, same deal, not on the roster previously. He's a defensive end. Cronus Grassu is the backup, was the backup center. He's on the practice squad. I like that for potential depth. And then Keelan Cole just recently got signed to the practice squad, wide receiver. And he was on the practice squad last year, and I like having him. He looked good in the preseason. Like, I wouldn't have been overly shocked if he made the team, but I like that he's on the practice squad. And I like Christian Wilkerson. So that's it for me. So,
all right. Let's get to a couple comments real quick. So Tim's Maniac Sports says, hey Tim, welcome to the stream. Amin the Dream says, what's up, Josh and Mike? Nothing, man. We're just, chilling. Football is back indeed. We are super excited. Yeah. We're going to get into talking about the Raiders and the 49ers upcoming matchups for week 1. So I guess we'll jump right in with the 49ers.
I just want to say that was a great game. Lions and Chiefs.
Was a great game.
I don't want to get into it, but it was a great game. So hopefully Amin, however you pronounce it.
Amin,
I hope that you enjoyed the game.
Yeah. So, thank you, Amin, for checking out the stream and commenting as well. We always appreciate, to hear people's feedback and just pop in and say what's up.
And also, I want to say he shouted us out on X as well.
Oh, yeah. Hey, honestly, thank you so much for that. Like, you didn't have to do that, but, we really appreciate that you did. And, if you guys haven't already, check out Amin the Dream's channel. Amin has his own channel where, he talks about the 49ers and, he's a recurring guest on the Cone Phone. And, Amin really knows this stuff. He's, Amin, you're in high school now, right? You're, you're very knowledgeable for your age. So, it's definitely, it's always a good time to listen to you, like when you're on Grant's show or when you're on your own show. So, we appreciate you checking us out.
And I just hit the follow buttons on X.
Hell yeah!
I forgot to before,
voice crack.
So.
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
I'm over here, like I mentioned high school, and I just busted out a throwback to high school when my voice was changing. So let's go ahead and preview the 49ers versus the Steelers matchup. So I anticipate a high scoring game, actually. Like, I know the Niners have a pretty, have one of the best defenses in the NFL, but the 49ers have shown that they don't start very quick. They don't have like all these intensive practices, in the off season. Like they go for like about like 90 minutes every day, it seems. And it's, I've been to a couple of their training camp practices, and it's, it's the same every year. And, you prepare the same, you're going to get the same output. So, you've got a couple guys that, maybe are a little bit banged up, like George Kittle. And I know that Ray McLeod is coming back from his injury, but I wonder if part of that has to do with the fact that Ray wanted to play against the Steelers since it was his old team. But I think that Wilkes is going to take a little bit of time to really get adjusted to the 49ers, their playmakers, because there's only 3 preseason games now, and you can only practice so much in today's NFL. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. And I also feel like Kenny Pickett is much better this year than he looked all of last year. And then also one thing I guess I didn't realize is that the Steelers won their last 7 games, or 7 out of their last 8 games. So Pickett started very slow last year. And honestly, I don't like Kenny Pickett. I have this negative stigma against him because of the fake slide that he did in college. Like, I feel like that was so fucking bullshit.
Well, he's going to stigma foot up your ass.
Yeah, you know what? Out. Yeah. Show's over.
This Sunday, he's going to stigma.
No, definitely not. But just just seeing the way that he played in the preseason, honestly, you can see the improvement from last year. It's like it's night and day in my opinion. So, I mean, one thing I'm looking out for is the 49ers are going to, I think, also start very well on offense. The offense under Purdy has shown, in my opinion, no signs of slowing down, which is a good thing. Um, I know that Purdy's been throwing interceptions in practice, but you take that with a grain of salt. Like, it is what it is. And Purdy has even said that sometimes he's trying stuff at practice that he wouldn't normally do in a game. And when we saw Purdy in the preseason games, Purdy looked like he was commanding the same offense that he did down the stretch last season. So that was, to me, very encouraging because it shows that, I mean, Shanahan obviously has faith in him. Purdy's one of the captains this year. And I think that Purdy is ready to pick up exactly where he left off. So Pittsburgh's got a pretty good defense, and we'll see. But I definitely think that there's going to be more scoring than maybe Las Vegas sportsbooks might anticipate, or that anybody might consider. Given that these are both two really good defenses, I think the offenses are pretty well off.
Yeah, I think it's either going to be way higher scoring than expected, or it's going to be even lower scoring than expected.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be one of the two. It's not going to be some random, or not random, but normal expected game, right? And then as far as Kenny Pickett, yeah, I didn't expect him to look so good this preseason, but I didn't have the same negative vibes as you did towards him. I just felt like he was playing like a rookie, and he was the only rookie last season that was worth the draft pick, And I just think, looking at the way that he plays, he kind of reminds me almost as like a more accurate in his rookie year, but less of a mobile quarterback to like Josh Allen. Like, I could see him progressing similarly to like Josh Allen.
I don't see it.
I don't see him becoming the great quarterback that Josh Allen is, but I could see him progressing where it's like, okay, year one, dog shit, horrible stats. Year two, respectable, like a Derek Carr type season. Maybe not like a prime Derek Carr, but like, year 2 or 3 Derek Carr, where it's like, wow, he's really progressed, And then year 3, he becomes like top 16 quarterback in the league. Like, there's the bottom top. There's the bottom half quarterbacks in the league, and there's the top half, and he might be right at the bottom of that top half.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it.
Yeah, I think that if I had to compare him to another player, I would say he sort of reminds me a little bit of Ryan Tannehill, but less running and less physical running and more, I would say, accurate passing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think he's on that's a really good comparison. I think he's on a trajectory to become a better decision-making, more accurate version of Ryan Tannehill. And Tannehill in his prime for the Titans was really getting the job done. So if this guy could be a smarter, more accurate version of that with this head coach, Mike Tomlin, they could go far. And that defense, So
that's another thing too that I want to say about this matchup, and it'll be the last thing I probably say about the matchup. One thing I know for certain is that Mike Tomlin is going to have the Steelers ready to play. They play hard, and Tomlin, in my opinion, is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. He has kept the job for so long. He's won at least one. I mean, he's won one Super Bowl, maybe more than one. But he's never had a losing season as a head coach. And so last season it looked like he was about to finally have his first losing season, and then they go on and win like 7 out of their last 8. I think Tomlin he's great. So, that's all I can really say about the Steelers matchup. I'm very excited to see how it goes. And it does give me like playoff game vibes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean it's two historic franchises, two teams that have well, the Niners have really high hopes, but I think the Steelers have hopes to be how do I say this? A team that everybody's overlooking and
A
just
dark horse.
shock. Yeah, dark horse. They kind of shock the world and make the playoffs and beat a lot of teams that wouldn't you wouldn't expect them to beat.
Mhm.
So, and I think with Mike Tomlin as the head coach, they can beat anybody. So, and
Mhm.
it'll be an interesting game, that's for sure. I don't.
Yeah.
I think the Niners should win, but like you said, they start slow. I could see this being an upset.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and. I mean, I go back and forth on this because it's in Pittsburgh. There's no George Kittle, but I'm
He's
not
out.
going to. Well, I don't know if he's. I mean, Joey has him on his fantasy team, and he seems to think that he's going to be out. Uh, but I don't know how close that he's been paying attention to it. Uh, if Kittle doesn't play, I still think that I want to see Ross Dwelly step up and catch a couple passes. He's obviously not going to be the same blocker that Kittle is, but give me the Niners because I don't know if I can bet against Purdy until I see it happen.
Yeah, true. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, I don't want to keep extending this, but it'll be interesting to see Purdy post elbow, and getting a real full game's worth of play.
Yeah, not just a drive or two, but
Yeah.
actually getting a full game. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Niners. I think they're serious about the season, so they better be trying to get that number 1 seed because I think that's huge. And yeah, before we get into the Raiders, I am going to take this comment. Good stream, guys. Thank you, Pia. Love you.
Thank you.
All right, Raiders. Mike, what do you think about this upcoming matchup versus the Broncos?
I don't know. No. Well, I mean, the obvious answer is we'll see. I think I like the Raiders, but the wild card here is Sean Payton. I feel like last year the Broncos defense didn't play up to the hype and expectation that people have for them, at least not against the Raiders, because the 8+ game win streak against the Broncos is ongoing. Josh Jacobs always has good games against them, and Devontae Adams was tearing up many people's number 1 corner, Patrick Surtain. So, but yeah, I mean, I have 5 points really for this game. My first point, I mean, not points, but really like kind of questions. How will Sean Payton and Russell Wilson perform? How will Sean Payton have changed this team? Will it be so much for the better that they're going to kick our ass? Or are they still the same old Broncos because of Russell Wilson? I don't know. We'll see. They also have, this is my next point. They have a lot of injuries right now. I haven't heard anything about Mike McGlinchey, but I'm curious if he's going to play. I remember a couple weeks ago he got injured, and they were saying it could be a 4-week thing. He might miss week 1.
You better hope Mike McGlinchey plays, dude. Max Crosby will tear that ass apart.
Yeah, but I mean, theoretically, their backup's worse, right? I'd rather play. I'd rather just have Max Crosby tear up McGlinchey, but we'll see. But that's one. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's another guy who might not make it, and I feel like there's at least 2 other guys, not prominent players, but guys that might not make week 1. So the Broncos don't seem to be at full health right now, whereas the Raiders, I want to say they are. Besides maybe Brandon Faison, I don't know. So the Broncos' health will be interesting. I mean, really for both teams, the health will be interesting. Next point, can the Raiders' defense show improvement? Can it show promise? Can it go out there and perform and really stop, and maybe even at times be dominant, you know? Um, I I mean, last season with Russell Wilson and the head coach whose name I'm forgetting, it was abysmal, So
Nathaniel Hackett.
thank you. Yeah. So was that because of that, or can this defense show major improvement and really keep that going? You know. Next point, the offense. How efficient and how good will the offense be against this Denver defense? And will any of the new additions to this team, like Michael Mayer, make a big difference? And I guess, will Josh McDaniels have a few new cards up his sleeve as far as play calling and whatnot? I'm really curious about that, because there's we keep saying the word now, but there's a stigma against Josh McDaniels that his offense is pretty simple, at least for defenses to like face up against. But I don't know. I mean, the things that I hear, not like I'm plugged in or anything, but just from what I see and whatnot, it doesn't sound like it's all that simple. So I'd like to see him throw out some real, special plays out there, like throw out some pizzazz.
I don't know if I would call it simple. I might maybe people the word they're looking for is a little stale. I mean, the dude
Or
did
old
win
fashioned.
6. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Yeah, old fashioned might be better. Like if you got the blueprint, the recipe for success, like why change it? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's football. You're playing the same sport. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You just have to use, what works and,
Exactly.
what works for the personnel that you have. But,
Yes.
Josh McDaniels has been a play caller on 6 Super Bowl teams. So theoretically, you have the right guys. You probably have. I mean, I can't think of many other people that you would want calling plays.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. And when you have Devontae Adams at wide receiver and Josh Jacobs, the defending rushing champion at running back, and an offensive line that gradually got better and better last season, and now, I mean, this would be the last point, is Jimmy Garoppolo, right? How does he perform?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, as far as offense, that's what I'm really curious about. And then,
so Ruben seems to think that Jimmy G always loses to Wilson. I will throw it back to week 16 against or it might have been week 17. Week 17 against the Seahawks in 2019. I mean, Jimmy won that game. I mean, it took a little inch to get was it Jake Hollister? Jake Hollister from getting in the end zone, but
oh, I know a game. Yeah. Week 9. That was the
No,
undefeated. That was at the end. That was to make. Yeah, that was to win the division, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was to win the
Okay.
division.
Sorry. Yeah, that's right. But that was the same season of what I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as that comment goes, I mean, if Jimmy G, well, if the Raiders lose to the Broncos, I doubt that I'm just going to be blaming Jimmy G. Maybe Russell Wilson has one of the games of his life and just tears our defense up, and I'm going to have major concern with the defense. But, I doubt that week 1 is going to tell me blame Jimmy G. And then as far as like always losing to him, it's a team game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I will say Russell Wilson always beats the 49ers. And I know that I just threw out an instance where the Niners beat Russell Wilson,
But that's
but
what it feels like.
It's definitely, I mean, it's not just what it feels like it's the fucking fact. Like we beat them once in the past, I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Past 10 years.
Yeah. There are certain, tendencies that happen that are just like, wow, like sort of just so happened to happen sort of stat. Like right now, the Raiders, as long as they've been in Vegas, they have never lost to the Broncos. Also, in all of Ben Roethlisberger's career, he never beat the Raiders in Oakland, and he played them like at least 3 times in Oakland. And I mean that's dating back to like 2006 when the Raiders were absolute dog shit. So sometimes those sort of things happen. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, some guys just have ownage over other franchises. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers and the Bears. I still own you.
Well, okay, so I mean, just to end it on this comment, and also just to end it for this point, because I'm pretty much done with what I have to say about the game. Well, I'll give my pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are two tendencies that are clashing. Then there's Jimmy G always loses to Russell Wilson, and there is Russell Wilson on the Broncos always loses to the Raiders. Which one's going to break, right?
Yeah. So before we give our predictions, Jerome Clemens says it's donkey ass whooping time. That's what I see. I wasn't impressed from what I saw from Russ so far, and it is year one in a new system.
Yeah, it is donkey ass whooping time. Let's fucking go.
Which brings us to our predictions. So, Mike, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first, and then you give your prediction?
You go first.
Honestly, I think the Raiders are going to come out hot, and I think they're going to beat the shit out of the Broncos. I honestly believe that Sean Payton is like miserable over there in Denver because I don't know if you saw the quote. He's like, "Quit fucking kissing babies. You're not running for office." To Russell Wilson.
It was a great quote. It was, yeah.
And then also too, like all his receivers are getting hurt, and his number one running back is coming off of a torn ACL, like a pretty bad, nasty knee surgery. And then Sean Payton's over here like talking about how he's never seen a team that was so poorly coached and whatnot. Almost seems like he's making excuses for why they won't be good this upcoming season. So I don't know. Like, well, I don't think the Broncos will be tanking, but I think they'll be better than last season. But I honestly, the way the Raiders played in the preseason, I think the Raiders will whoop that donkey ass, as Jerome would say.
Yeah, I'll say, just to kind of comment on that one part about him saying that the poor coaching from last season. That isn't that I take it the opposite way. It's not that he's making an excuse for how bad they might be this year. It's actually maybe him trying to put confidence in his players this year that they're not that same team. And
that they're in good hands.
Yeah, my coaching is going to change that. It's a little pat on his own back, and also like, hey, my players, we can win.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I believe that. Like, on paper, their team is good. Again, I don't think they're fully healthy right now. And I think their defense is slightly overrated. But we'll see. As far as my prediction, I think we win. I think we go in there. I think it's a closer game than I want it to be, but I think we come out with the win. So
the way I see it, I think I just see the Broncos maybe starting off a little slow and maybe struggling, and it might be one of those days for them. Then again, I mean, it's not a primetime game, right? Because I could definitely see that if it were a primetime game. Like, do you remember the opening game for the Raiders? It was like Monday Night Football. I came over to your house for, and like the Raiders just like fucking, they steamrolled.
That was Josh Jacobs' debut. Yeah.
Mm. Was Joe Flacco the quarterback? Who was the quarterback?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely
was he was a Bronco, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So
unless it was,
I could see that if it was a primetime game.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter who the quarterback was. I'm just trying to like pinpoint. But
yeah, it could have been Drew Lock or Paxton Lynch. I don't remember.
Yeah, I forget. But I don't know. Since it might be, what is it, a morning game?
It's a 1 p.m. game.
1 p.m. Yeah, okay. So it could be one of those games that maybe is back and forth and the Raiders pull one out. I feel like on prime time though, there's like I watch too many games where like one team just shits the bed and like the other team is just like sort of controlling the game. So I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Like I'm not a fortune teller, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I think the Raiders win.
Yeah. All I gotta say is just win, baby.
But throwing it back to this side of the bay, the actual bay, faithful to the bay, right, Mike? I'm going to go ahead and start to give my final 49ers 2023 predictions. And Mike will also give, maybe share his thoughts as well. I don't know if you had anybody picked out for the Niners, but
yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and predict. I mean, it's so early to make like a record prediction. Anything can happen over the course of a season. And honestly, maybe the Niners fucking go out on Sunday and like burst up in flames. And maybe we're looking at this team as like, hey, maybe they're going to get Caleb Williams. That's not going to fucking happen. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's
like anything.
Is this the first year that they have their first round pick upcoming?
Yeah.
Oh, so the Trey Lance trade is like basically all done now as far as capital spent.
Yeah,
because that's right. Because the Dolphins had already showed like all the players they got through and all that. I will say this as far as the win-loss projections, the only reason I kind of want to do it for both teams right now is just to have something to look back on
to go back to.
Like we know that we're not going to get it right. We might, but like the reason why we expect the number we expect won't be what happens. Like I might say, oh, I think the Raiders clearly should win week 1 and then lose week 2 to the Bills, and it might be the other way around, but the record that I predict might be the same, right? So, anyways, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and say my gut is telling me that the Niners are a 13-win team, but we'll see. Like that's just the number that I have today, and as the season goes on, I might stray away from that. So if you're going to hold that against me, I'm sorry that I can't tell the future, but I can tell you that as of today, from what I know, my gut just tells me that number. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I looked at the schedule and I was kind of just like giving a green tally for win, red tally for loss. And I feel like most of the schedule, it almost feels too obvious where it's like, okay, they should win that game. Oh, they should win that game. Yeah, they should win that game. And then there's occasional games where it's like, well, that might be interesting, right? But I'm not going to give you a loss for all those games, but I'm also not going to give you a win for every single obvious game that should be won.
Yeah, so Mike's got us at about like you've got us at about 5, 4, and how many ties?
7.
7.
Yeah, no. When looking at the schedule, I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. I have you guys at 11-6. But it's between 11 or 12 wins for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just shoehorned in one extra loss just because there's always that one game that like, oh, what the fuck happened?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, there might be a lot more games where it's like, dude, we dominated the Bengals. Man, we dominated the Ravens. Teams like that. And the Cowboys, right? So you got like 13 wins is totally within – it's easily within the realm of possibility and reality. So –
what I'll say is if Brock Purdy plays at the same efficiency that he did last season, there should be no team that can beat the 49ers. But we're going to...
I mean, I would still say the Eagles. I would say the Bills can. The Chiefs can. Or maybe even... Well, actually...
The Eagles will be interesting.
The Eagles for sure will be interesting, and I think if a team would match up better with the Niners, it'd be I think the Bills would match up better than the Chiefs. But anyways, continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the Bengals too.
Damn, there's going to be some real tests on this schedule. Yeah, that's going to be crazy. I'm just thinking about Purdy going against the Bills defense. Like that is, I mean, besides the Eagles defense last year, and the Cowboys defense was pretty good. But I feel like the Bills defense is closer to the Eagles than they are the Cowboys. But, it's like kind of in another stratosphere, like the level of difficulty of that game will probably be. And for all we know, the Bills can fall
I,
apart.
I don't think you guys faced the Bills this year. I
Well,
was
then why
just
the hell
throwing.
do you have me talking about that?
I just threw them out there because I think they're a team that might match up and be better than you guys. But I don't know.
Well, it won't matter if
You
they don't make
you
it
just
out of the
said
AFC.
you just said if Purdy is as efficient as last year, no team should beat you guys, and I disagree. I think the Eagles still theoretically should, and I think the Bills are that good. Though that's my Super Bowl pick this year is Bills Eagles.
So what you're saying is that the 49ers won't be able to beat the Bills, but you're saying they're not even going to play them. Like, you don't have the Niners even going to the Super Bowl to play one of those teams. I mean, all I'm saying is that any team that faces the Niners, as long as Purdy plays at the same efficiency, they should win. But you're saying, oh, there's teams over here that the Niners wouldn't beat, but it's not like they'll play. We won't find out.
Yeah,
According to you, maybe they'll play in the Super Bowl, but it would have to be the Super Bowl.
I don't want to come off like I'm saying the Bills are definitely better or the Eagles. I just say that they match up well. And as far as like if the Niners are as efficient and healthy as possible, nobody should beat them. Like, well, I can name you two teams that very well could. So I don't know about should, Anyways,
well, all I'll say is the efficiency last year, it was the number one offense in points per game down the stretch.
Yeah.
So if you're number one in points per game, and then the Niners had a top 3 defense last season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you go based off of that, they should win every game. But it's a new team, new depth. Guys regress, guys improve, and other teams build up better rosters, yada, yada, yada. So on paper, the 49ers should go deep in the playoffs. And I'm super excited because we're getting closer to finding out what the Niners are going to be, what the Raiders are going to be. But
do you have any breakout candidates for the
I was
Niners?
just about to get to there.
Okay.
So one player that jumps to mind, I think Brandon Ayuk. I think it's his turn. The 49ers finally have a quarterback that they feel confident is their guy. I don't think that they've had that. You could argue that they had that in Jimmy Garoppolo. Excuse me. You'd argue that they had that with Jimmy Garoppolo, but their actions would tell you they never had faith in Garoppolo. They didn't pass with him a lot when he was in the playoffs in 2019. And then 2020, he was hurt a lot. And then 21, they mortgaged their entire future to draft their replacement. And then they decided they didn't like the replacement, or they liked the replacement less than they liked Jimmy Garoppolo. And so they treated him as such. So they finally have a guy who, I mean, Garoppolo was a captain. Lance was never a captain. They're fully behind Brock. And Shanahan says Brock is the real deal. And, I mean, we're going to find out this season if he really is. There's such a small sample size. But I think Purdy knows where he wants to go with the ball. And he's able to escape the pocket and extend plays where the other quarterbacks, weren't as skilled in that area. I think Ayuk is going to benefit because he has been tearing up practice, for like the past 2 years. And honestly, since he's been here, I think Ayuk has been very talented and everything. But Ayuk is going to have a contract the following year, or he's going to be eligible for an extension the following season. So I think Ayuk is going to want to get the bag.
Is this his fourth year?
This is his third.
Okay, so
2020, 21, 22. Oh, shit, no, this is his fourth.
Right. And did they
pick up his fifth-year option?
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, 2020.
Because I want to say you have to pick it up the year prior. Oh no, the off season before, or before the off season before the final year in the deal. So if this
Damn,
is his
this is
fourth
year
year,
4 for Ayuk.
yeah,
Holy shit!
if this is year 4 for Ayuk, then they must have done it this offseason or they didn't do it. And at the end of the season, they have to, come up with a new contract. Either way, he's going to be, going out there trying to earn a new contract. So
Part of me thinks that they restructured Kittle and Williams just to sort of budget for Ayuk, to budget for his extension next year.
maybe a little bit, but doing that move that they did, like you said before, it pushed money back. So if anything, it makes it harder to. I don't know how they did it. So
Yeah, I
I
don't know
can't
how they
say.
did it either, but
Yeah,
maybe there's a guy that they can, move off of, and maybe they want to keep Ayuk. I think it would be in their best interest too, but you
yeah, for
can
Purdy.
replace receivers. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Ayuk is
yeah,
just a great one. And,
yeah.
Ayuk's definitely motivated to, if not get a contract with the 49ers, to get his next contract with the next, with his next team. So,
Yeah. Do you have any other breakout candidates?
um, I mean, I would be inclined to say Purdy, but I would, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else. I think Debo's going to have a return to form. I don't know if he'll like break out per se.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I would just I'm gonna go ahead and stick with Ayuk as my pick. I really think
Yeah.
like you sort of know what you're gonna get with most of the 49er players by now. So there's
Yeah.
not gonna be a whole lot of opportunity for other players to break out. Maybe one of the backup running backs will cement themselves as the running back 2 behind McCaffrey as
Mhm.
opposed to Elijah Mitchell. So maybe you could consider that a breakout.
Mhm.
Uh, and I know we wanted to pick team MVP, but I will allow you first. Do you have any opinion on the breakout?
Yeah. I was gonna say I was considering Tyrion Davis Price is his name.
Ty
I
Davis
was
Price, yeah.
I was considering him, but I have 4. One's an honorable mention, and that honorable mention is Brandon Ayuk, just because I feel like he already has sort of broken out, but I could see him having a much bigger season than he's had before, for sure.
Yeah. If he finally
Um,
has the stability at quarterback and the consistency, then I think that there are so many weapons. The defense is going to have to spread out, and Ayuk is going to get the love that he needs.
Yeah, I do think the one difficulty for Ayuk is how crowded this offense is as far as playmakers. Your running back catches a lot of passes. Debo gets a lot of scripted passes. George Kittle gets a lot of passes over the middle, right? Um, so
I just think there will
I
be a lot of touchdowns to go around.
yeah, there should be. But other than Ayuk, I'm kind of going from 3 to 1. And this one is like he's a breakout for the Niners, but he's already broken out in the past. Specifically, I think last season, Javon Hargrave, first year on the
Mm.
team. He'll be interesting to see. And I just think as far as him being new to the team, he's sort of in that way, he's a breakout for this team. My next 2, Cleveland Farrell. I think that if he gets time on this defense and he gets significant reps, specifically against the run, he will succeed for you guys. And I think under the coaching of the coach's name, I do not have in my head.
Chris Kosarick.
Yeah, I think he's going to improve, and I think if he's called upon, he will answer. And then my top breakout candidate for you guys is Jair Brown, the safety. I think he's going to be your number 3 safety at some point, if not already, and he will show up a lot more than you might expect a rookie when your starters are already cemented, at safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll make plays. So
mm-hmm. I'm gonna give one more pick for breakout player because I feel like he, I just thought about this right now. I think Drake Jackson has a good opportunity to be a breakout player and, at least take a leap from where he was last season, because I'm pretty sure he'll be playing on the starting defensive line, and that defensive line is one of the best defensive lines in football. So if they're going to be double teaming Bosa or possibly even triple teaming him, Hargrave is a great pass rusher. And then Eric Armstead is a pretty good defensive tackle. I think as long as Drake Jackson can refine his pass rush, his pass rush moves, I think that he is definitely in line to produce more than he did last season. So we'll keep him.
Yeah, he's right in the same breath as Cleveland Farrell for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Next up,
team MVP. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy. And I do have an honorable mention, but the reason why I'm choosing Purdy is because I really feel like this team will go as far as Purdy will take them. I don't have a ton of faith in Sam Darnold. I felt pretty like, he made some good throws in the preseason, but like overall, I just kind of felt a little underwhelmed by his performance. And there's like a clear difference between Darnold running the offense and Purdy running the offense. Like when Purdy's running it, the offense is going down the field. When Darnold's running it, it's like one of the like you ever watched like those slow primetime games? Like you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick Brock Purdy. We'll see. We'll see how he does.
No, I completely agree. Is that your only? Or you said there was another one, right?
Yeah, my honorable mention would be McCaffrey, because he's going to be the favorite dump off target, and he's gonna pick up a lot of yards.
Yeah. As far as my choices for MVP, I think you have a lot to choose from for sure, because my opinion on this team is that it's very top heavy. The obvious choice is Brock Purdy, but because I knew he was going to be talked about, and like it's just so obvious, I had to go with somebody else. So Brock Purdy's a honorable mention for me. The other honorable mention for me is Christian McCaffrey. And then I mean, like in the same breath, you could bring up Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, right, on defense. But my MVP for the San Francisco 49ers in 2023 is a guy who I think if you lost him, you would be fucked, and that's Trent Williams.
I'm gonna disagree with you. Okay, I fully agree. The Niners, that offensive line is in shambles without Trent Williams. But without Brock Purdy, I think we're even more fucked. And obviously, Purdy might go down without Williams. Like you can make that argument too, but you can get serviceable offensive line play, from a backup. I mean, it's going to be a huge downgrade no matter who you go to, from Trent Williams to anybody.
Yeah.
But if Purdy goes down, I think you can kiss the Super Bowl goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that, yes. I'm mostly saying this because I knew Purdy was obvious. You know what I mean? But I just think right in the same breath with Purdy, maybe right below Purdy, would be Trent Williams.
Yeah, he's one of them.
That wrecks the passing game and the running game completely.
He would be my other honorable mention. Yeah. But you can always scheme around Trent Williams. I mean, to a certain point, right? Like you don't want Purdy to get fucking obliterated on his blind side.
Yeah.
But you could get around one offensive lineman going down. There's no way you can get around losing a quarter, like going from Purdy to Darnold. I feel like that's a way. I mean, it's just a big jump at the most important position.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think, I mean, the same would have been said last year about, like, you take Jimmy Garoppolo off the team, you would have said, I mean, the gap between Trey Lance and and Brock Purdy, and this is probably a shitty example, but still, at the time, not knowing who Brock Purdy was, we would say like, well, if they lose Trey Lance, they're fucked. And yet Brock Purdy almost took him to the fucking Super Bowl, And honestly, I think Jimmy Garoppolo might have done the same, just by, the offense was rolling. I think it did get better with Purdy. And yeah, I don't believe in Sam Darnold, but maybe he's more ready to win games than the backup left tackle would be. But that it's a completely different position, and I agree that quarterback is the most important. I'm not trying to say. I'm just saying if they lose Trent Williams, I think they're probably fucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say, and then we'll move on. I agree. It's not good if you lose Trent Williams. But Purdy last season was a diamond in the rough. The Niners didn't even know what they had in Purdy. I feel like everybody sort of knows what we have in Sam Darnold. So whereas Purdy was a diamond in the rough as one of the backup quarterbacks, Sam Darnold has proven that he's dog shit in the rough.
Yeah,
so the Niners can say, hey, I have this fucking fantastic diamond, but you are holding up a turd and trying to convince everybody that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my one thought along with that is like the stigma again is that Shanahan, his offense is very QB friendly. But yes, I agree. Like Sam Darnold has not proven to be very good. So, anyways.
Mm-hmm. I think Sam Darnold can go in there and win football games. I just don't think they can win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. And I would love for him to prove me wrong, but I would really fucking hate it if Sam Darnold came in there, won a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden we have to pay him.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because he's on a contract year. But I think we're ready to move on to the Raiders predictions for 2023. Mike, I'll let you go ahead and start this one off.
Cool. Yeah, I'll start with the win-loss record as well. Unless, actually, I want yours first. What is your prediction for the win-loss record for the Raiders?
I mean, it's tough. Can I get back to you on week 18? Oh. I'm not going to say like the same prediction I had for the Niners. Like that's super fucking unrealistic, but I will say like sort of along the same lines where we still have yet to we don't know a lot about this team yet, and things happen over a course of the season, yada, yada, yada. But if I had to pick a number today, I'll give you a range. I'll go between I want to say 8, but I might say 7 just to be safer. No, I'll go 8. Anywhere between 8 and 11 wins. I don't see more.
Yeah, no, I really like that. When I looked at the schedule and I, decided like I have to come up with a specific number, I see the Raiders win-loss record as far as my prediction preseason 9-8, a winning record, which compared to last season would be a major step up, an improvement. I know obviously every Raider fan wants to go to the playoffs. I also need to preface that the AFC is absolutely fucking loaded, and we were just talking about the Steelers as a dark horse team. I mean, if you add the Steelers to the list of potential playoff teams in the AFC, this thing right here, right there, is a standings board that I have with magnets, and it has every team by division. And right now I have the Chiefs at the bottom in the AFC West because they fucking lost today. Just wanted to remind you. But the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, complete fucking wild card. The Jaguars, you could throw the Titans in there, but the Colts and Texans can eat it. The Chargers, honestly, the Broncos, complete wild card. And, of course, the Chiefs will make the playoffs. I left out 3 teams. 3 teams as far as that, I'm like, they're not making the playoffs. The Patriots, the Texans, and the Colts. and I didn't mention the Raiders, so technically 4, but like I see the Raiders as a dark horse in the same breath as the Steelers. And I agree with you that like max 11 wins. If like, maybe not max, but like if
As
everything
of
goes right,
today, what I
yeah,
see.
yeah. If everything went right and like kind of best case scenario, I mean not literally, but you know what I mean. I could see 11 wins and they get in that 6th to 7th seed, right? They're not winning this division. I'm sorry, they're not. You know, I mean unless they are uber efficient and the defense is top 10, like shockingly improved, right? Which I just don't see happening in 1 year. But crazier things have happened, right?
I'm not going to
Uh,
say they're not going to win the division, but I would just say that I would be shocked to see it happen.
yeah, we would be shocked until it's like week 10 and it's like, holy shit, wait, look at the schedule. They can do this. And then maybe they do it, right? But yeah, I just as a realistic person that is looking at the schedule, I got 9-8, but I agree with you. I could see between 8 to 11 wins. Like that's a perfect range.
I could even see 7, so maybe I might extend it to 7. It just really depends how the season breaks
Yeah.
and,
Bear in mind,
if
like
guys step up.
this is assuming like everybody's healthy. Like that's the best case scenario, right? Worst case scenario is Jimmy G gets injured in week fucking 2 against the Bills, and he's out for the season, and it's up to Aiden O'Connell, and like maybe for 1 or 2 weeks it's like, oh, it's happening, and then it's like, he's the 4th-round rookie. He's not really that good,
Mhm.
and they don't, they lose a bunch of games and they end up, like you said, 7 wins or 6 wins again. I think the major difference this year, though, like I keep saying, efficiency. They're not going to lose games that they're leading by 3 fucking scores. That's not happening again this year. There's no way. Unless it's against the Chiefs, they're not losing a game that they're up by over 14 points, which happened like 5 times last season.
We're gonna.
My dick. So
I am going to screen record that, and I'm going to see if they do lose a game where they're up by 3 scores and it's not the Chiefs. I don't think they will because I feel like
that has to be
I
an
want.
emphasis for Josh McDaniels. Like that is the one thing that was clearly on him, unless it was on Derek Carr, but like it was also on the defense, obviously. But still, it's like that's an emphasis, dude. That shit's not gonna fly again.
Mhm.
That's the one thing. Like I can say it. I think I said it. I think I said it early on in our podcast episodes. Josh McDaniels, I guarantee it. You can screen record this right now. Unless some really weird shit happens, like what's going on with Chandler Jones, if some really dire weird shit happens, then maybe. But I can go on record and say Josh McDaniels will not get fired at the end of the season. He will not. It's not happening, and it's not because he shouldn't. Like I'm not like a Josh McDaniels dick writer. I'm just saying, based off of what I see from Mark Davis and his decision making, he does not want to fire a coach again after 2 seasons or after a short stint. He wants to let a coach and GM who are working together, that's why he hired them together, but 2 buddies from the same organization
A
to build
successful one.
to build their team their way according to their plan in their necessary amount of time. That's what he was doing with John Gruden, right? And at first, it was a clusterfuck with Reggie McKenzie, and that didn't work well. They didn't mesh, and that's when Mark Davis decided, well, I want a GM that works well with the head coach. And then Mayock came, and then that shit got all blown up. Now you see how, Mark Davis is reacting. So, anyways,
I mean, I think we can confidently say that Mayock and Gruden didn't work out. Like aside from the whole email scandal, that combo, like how many first rounders did they hit on? Like just Colton
yeah,
Miller, and like I
yeah,
mean,
I think John
granted, the
Gruden's drafting was
Niners have
horrible.
been successful with only one first rounder that they've re-signed, but like it's like the Antonio Brown situation, all that other shit. The Henry
Yeah,
Ruggs situation.
yeah.
Well, that happened
It
with Basaccia, but it was another Gruden pick
it was a Gruden
or
and Mayock
Mayock.
led decision. Yes, their first round picks were horrible, and I'm like fairly positive the idea or thought process or fact is that Gruden had full say in everything. Obviously, like he could veto, but he chose the first round picks. Like that was kind of his guy. Maybe not on defense, like Cleveland Farrell. That might have been a Mayock guy, but on offense, I think he was the guy pulling the trigger. And other than Colton Miller and Josh Jacobs, it did not work. Uh, yeah, just it was
Sometimes,
bad decision making. I just looking at this uh, leadership, GM and head coach pairing, like their decision making is so much better. It's not even funny. You just need to actually like pay attention, and you can see how much better it is and how much better they are at drafting. That'll take years to actually see, but like, and last year they didn't have a first round pick, so we'll see with Tyree Wilson. But it just seems already like they're pretty good at doing this. So,
mhm,
anyways,
we'll
that,
see.
that was a rant.
Uh, the quick little comment I want to make is sometimes these head coaches have to just stay the fuck out of the way. I know you want your guy like in the first round, but I think you have to like you have to be let the scouts be heavily involved because they're the people who have seen everything about these players.
Yeah, I mean, John Gruden got signed on to a 10-year mega deal, and Reggie McKenzie and his scouts were, kept layover, whatever you want to call it, from the previous season.
Mhm.
And the report is that when that first draft came for John Gruden and Reggie McKenzie's staff, the scouts, here's our scouting grades. This is what we think. And then draft time came, and John Gruden was just like, I'm going to draft this guy. And Reggie McKenzie was saying, well, what about this? No, I'm going to draft this guy. Click. It didn't even fucking matter. So, dysfunction. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, because I know it seems like the 49ers on our side looks like they draft way better in the later rounds, and I wonder if that's where the scouts actually have say in the picks. And earlier on, Shanahan's like, I want this guy. They trade up for a couple guys, like like just let who's in charge of that and who that's
Who's their
their
job?
sole job.
Yeah.
That is their sole purpose. Let them do it. Just tell them what you need and let them do it.
Well, that was my thing with Mayock was look at his late round picks. Max Crosby, Hunter Renfro, right? You could add in like Foster Moreau. There were a bunch of depth guys that they got that were like really good for this team. I mean, now Malcolm Kuntz. We'll see, but still, like that's what it's feeling like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, but the first round picks were just abysmal. So,
Mm-hmm. So
as
give me
far as
your
this,
MVP and your breakouts.
yeah, as far as this team, well, do you have any breakout? I want you to go first. Do you have any breakouts?
Mm,
Just
I'm gonna
based off
go
of
with
everything you've been hearing.
Tyree Wilson. I
Yeah.
think that being opposite side of Max Crosby definitely gives them an advantage. It's gonna take them a little bit of time, but it sounds like, I mean, in my opinion, and we'll talk about this a little later, Chandler Jones's future with the Raiders is in question, and that's putting it nicely.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
or at least the near future.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I got Tyree Wilson. How about Hunter Renfro and Jacoby Myers?
Jacoby Myers, sure. I mean, Hunter Renfro broke out 2 years ago when he had like 1,000 yards. Like we know
Okay,
he's
how about a
great,
return to
but
form?
yeah,
But I feel like Hunter Renfro. I mean, because Jimmy Garoppolo's the quarterback, I feel like Hunter Renfro can find himself in sort of like a similar role that the Niners had Trent Taylor in when Trent Taylor was playing
Mhm.
along with Garoppolo. Like I feel like Hunter Renfro is way better than Trent Taylor was. So
Yeah.
um, that might be something to look at. But in terms of other people breaking out, I can't really think of. many more. So I'll let you go for it.
Cool. My honorable mention, right off the bat, every single breakout that I have is on defense. Not one single person on offense. The only one I consider was Michael Mayer, but I feel like maybe towards the end of the season, he'll come on and really start breaking out. Or, well, I don't know about breaking out, but show out right here and there. But Marcus Epps is my honorable mention. I think he's going to be very important for this defense, and I hope he's a playmaker. And he has the captain patch. I hope that he not only earned it in the locker room, but also earns it on the field, and shows for it. My technically third honorable mention, and this is based off of recent news, is Malcolm Kuntz. Between him showing out in the preseason, having reports in training camp that he was doing really well, and then now everything going on with Chandler Jones, I feel like Malcolm Kuntz is going to get a lot of playing time this season. So I have him as a breakout. My number 2 is Divine Diablo, linebacker. He was sort of a breakout pick last year for everybody, and maybe around like week 9 or 10, he got injured and was out for the rest of the season. But he was on pace for a great season, pretty great season. So I don't know about Pro Bowl, but statistically good season. And then my number 1 is a tie between Tyree Wilson and Jacorian Bennett, the corner, 4th-round pick out of Maryland. If he truly is a starter on this defense day one, God, I hope he's good. I hope he looks like a true starter, because it's been a while at corner for this team. So, to have a guy that's young, first year rookie that shows real true promise at corner, I'm thinking back to days like DJ Hayden. I had a lot of hope for Garyon Conley, but that didn't work. And then recently fucking Damon Arnett. Don't even mention it. So, yeah, those are my breakouts. Yeah. I'll never, I have to say this at least once. I'll never forget, every year you get rookies and it's like you get hyped, or like free agent signings, you get super hyped. It's like, oh, I can't wait for this fucking player, right? Well, 2019 first round, we have 2 first-round picks. We get Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett.
That was 2020.
2020, okay, thank you. Damon Arnett felt like a reach. He apparently had like a 3rd-round grade on like a lot of people's boards or whatever. So it was like, dude, fuck me. But, we were like, as a hopeful fan, it's like, God, I hope this dude's good and like proves it. So in training camp, he had a play where they filmed him like man-to-man on a receiver, some veteran, right? Quarterback threw it deep. It was like a fade, right to the back corner of the end zone. And it was like nice coverage, but no pads, right? But he, reached up, hit the ball out, and like he's like, oh yeah, like he's like flexing and stuff. And he goes up to the camera, he's like, it gets sticky in the net. And I was like, bro, what the fuck is that about? Like, it gets sticky in the net. I was like, dude, okay, I get it.
I think you mentioned that to me before.
Yeah, like I think about it a lot. Like, it's just one of those stupid things where your mind just goes to random places. I'll be doing absolutely nothing, and all of a sudden in the back of my head, I just go, it gets sticky in the net. And I just start like, oh my God, like, just, dude. Yeah, Damon Arnett's going to be a player I don't forget for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I want to name an honorable mention. This might not, they probably won't have a breakout season for the Raiders, but I think that they will be an integral part of the team and have a pretty solid role on the defense is Marcus Peters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good one.
I don't know if he'll break out because he's like kind of old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms of like he's past his prime.
Oh, I see. Yeah. But for this team, he'll break out.
For this team, he will have a significant role, I think,
Yeah.
in ensuring that the defense doesn't get torched
Yeah.
by
Yeah, for
number
sure.
one receivers at least. So
Yeah. Who is or are your MVP picks for this team, this Raiders team?
I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to say Josh Jacobs. I was in between Josh Jacobs and Max Crosby, but I feel like the drop off from Jacobs to Zamir White is kind of huge, and the Raiders are going to need they're going to need that rushing game to work with Garoppolo because they're I mean we've talked about Garoppolo being a game manager. If you put the ball in Garoppolo's hands like to win you the game, I don't know if he's going to be able to consistently do that. You definitely want to have Josh Jacobs in shape. I question whether he'll be ready, like game shape ready for week 1, because I've seen videos of him and he looks a little bit more chunky than I remember him. But I think that Josh Jacobs will be the MVP of the team this year, like he was last year.
Yeah, that's certainly a safe pick, and I do agree that for this passing offense and obviously just the offense in general, the run game is very important, and um, yeah, he'll be vital for this team for sure. Um, is that your only name of mention? I mean, you said also like you were between him and Crosby.
I just think Crosby's the best player on the team.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Him or Devontae.
Or at least him, Devontae, or Jacobs. I would go him or Devontae. I think they're a tier ahead, but I think Jacobs is the workhorse that they need. So, I don't know if Zamir White can take that over a 17 game season.
No,
I've seen Josh Jacobs do it, and he's still young, and he's on a contract year.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we've seen Jacobs have the usage that he did last year, like it's a good choice for MVP for sure. My MVP picks. I have 3. Well, I have 3 from 3 to 1, right? And tied at 3 is Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, the 2 major skill players on offense. They are going to help my number 2 the most. My number 2 being, of course, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think this season really rides on his health and his decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if he goes down, I mean, because of this preseason, I'm a little bit more upbeat that Aiden O'Connell maybe he can do it. And there's only one way to find out, right? But I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the pro, and you actually sent me a video recently of him saying, Jimmy Garoppolo saying, I forget what the question was, but he was saying something along the lines of like, well, I mean, this is like a business, and the team is always looking to replace you, and I'm here to prove them wrong, or like not like in like a negative way towards the team, but just like I want to go out there and prove myself. Like, that was it. Like, well, do you have something to prove this season? And he was like, well, there's always something to prove, So It was a good answer, basically. But if he has that chip on his shoulder and he has that thing to prove that he's still that starting quarterback and he could still win games and all that, like that is what will get us more than 9 wins, is if he can go out there and be that guy, But my main number 1 MVP for this team is the leader of this team, the unquestioned leader of this team. And in my opinion, the face of this team, Max Crosby.
God damn, you didn't hesitate. I was going to say Chandler Jones.
Yeah, no. But
Max Crosby.
Yeah, Crosby. I think his leadership is the main reason for this. I think if anybody other than our defensive coordinator is going to get this defense rolling and to be where it needs to be, it's Max Crosby.
So you just took my pick and you think it's cool.
I took your backup pick.
So you think that's cool, huh?
Yeah.
No, but I mean it's pretty solid, you know.
Just like the Niners one, like I just didn't want to be obvious and say Jimmy Garoppolo. I didn't want to say the quarterback, but I mean my number 2 is Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, and I think because of Aiden O'Connell, I can pick Max Crosby over Jimmy G.
I don't quite see it that way. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo has to be exceptional. I think that
he has to be efficient.
He's got to be efficient, and you know he typically is, you know, pretty good running an offense. He's a serviceable quarterback. He's not terrible. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be like the most important player on the team. Like I think Aiden O'Connell can step in there and like, you know, run the team just fine if he has to.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that you gave, you know, at least the Crosby one. You know, it's a pretty solid pick. Like I said, it was my backup.
Yeah, and I like the Josh Jacobs pick a lot. You know, I would say Josh Jacobs is. Oh, that's tough. Who is more valuable to this team, Josh Jacobs or Davante Adams? That's actually tough.
It's easy. It's Jacobs. I'm telling you right now.
He should be.
Davante Adams is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but they are going to rely more heavily on Josh Jacobs this season than they are on Davante Adams. You can screen record this. I'm willing to put it out there. I honestly believe Jacobs has the bigger role.
Right. They definitely have the 2 biggest roles on offense, that's for sure. I mean, last year, Davante Adams, 14 touchdowns. I think Josh Jacobs had 12 rushing. I forget how many receiving. But it's not all about touchdowns. Like the usage, yes, Josh Jacobs was used way more. I mean, 300 fucking touches. He had just as many as the quarterback. That's insane. But I think also, you know, if you take Davante Adams out, the passing offense gets completely fucked.
I don't think so.
I do.
I don't think so.
I think he's that much of a difference maker. Like I said, I think it's between him and Max Crosby for the best player on the team. Like I agree, Josh Jacobs is that good, but like Davante Adams is fucking different, and Max Crosby is fucking different, and Josh Jacobs played like he's fucking different, but like he's not the guy that's gonna run consistent like big boom 90-yard runs. You know, he's gonna get you big 30-yard chunks. It's rare that he's going to get that Seahawks overtime game-winning run unless the defense is playing right up on the line of scrimmage like they were.
Yeah. I mean, when Jimmy Garoppolo came in 2017 on the Niners, he didn't have like a big-name receiver to throw to. It was just like a wide receiver group, and he spread the ball around. He had Kittle, he had Trent Taylor, Marquise Goodwin, if I'm remembering correctly, and Pierre Garçon.
Mm-hmm.
If Pierre Garçon was healthy, like by the time Garoppolo was in,
right.
So you don't need to have the superstar wide receiver with a guy like Garoppolo. I feel like you have to have the superstar wide receiver with a guy like Rodgers, because Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks who's like, he's only going to throw to the guy he trusts.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying. We talked about the receivers fitting for Garoppolo before. Like Davante Adams, I would say is the best route runner in football. But like as far as short yardage route running, Hunter Renfrow and Jacoby Myers are fucking brilliant. So, and I would expect a very West Coast offense for this team. So, you know, if you took out Davante Adams, I guess my issue would be you eliminate a massive threat in the passing offense to where the defense can sell out against the run, and Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't scare them enough, you know, to completely win a game. Whereas with Davante Adams, it's a little different, But as far as usage, Josh Jacobs will get. Yeah, I agree with your quote you stat of Jacobs will get more than Devontae this year.
Mm-hmm. He'll have a bigger chunk of the pie. But what
Yeah.
I'll say is when the Patriots won their Super Bowls when Josh McDaniels was calling plays, who were the top receivers?
Well, at one point, Randy Moss.
They
And they
didn't win the
always.
Super Bowl with Randy Moss.
Fuck, that's true. Good point. Yeah. No, they always had Wes Welker, Danny Amendola. There was the other guy. Oh, jeez. And at one point they had Dion Branch. I want to say his name was. That was around the Randy Moss time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yes, Wes Welker,
Amendola, Gronkowski,
tight end. Yeah, and then there was the other guy from
Aaron
the Broncos.
Hernandez.
They had there was Wes Welker. Oh, Edelman.
Julian Edelman. Yeah.
Wes Welker was the guy I was thinking of, but Edelman, yes.
None of these guys are superstar wide receivers. The tight ends were fantastic, but
yeah, I mean Edelman played like a superstar, but Hunter Renfro's best season wasn't too far removed from Danny Amendola,
Mm-hmm.
But Danny Amendola is definitely better than Renfro, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is not Danny.
My bad. Edelman. Jesus.
Julian
Continue.
Edelman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edelman was. I mean, Edelman's in the talks of possibly being a Hall of Famer because of the Super Bowl stuff. I don't know if he's quite a Hall of Famer, but he's definitely. I would say if the Patriots, I want to say they have their own Hall of Fame or Ring of Honor or whatever, he's definitely one of those players. Also, one of my AirPods just died. But my point, the point being is that McDaniels' offensive system has worked in offenses. It has worked to get Super Bowls in offenses that lacked superstar wide receivers. So, you want a great group of guys, and I've told you this before, but I think we're ready to move on to our final topic of the day, and that would be the Chandler Jones situation. So, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about this, but I quickly want to preface. I want to preface this by saying that this situation seems pretty serious about what's going on with Chandler Jones and the Raiders right now. And we quickly just want to clarify that Mike and I are not mental health experts. We're not doctors, and everything that we're saying, we don't have the complete story. So we're just speculating. So if Chandler Jones or the Raiders, see this and we get anything wrong with the facts versus the way that we're interpreting the situation, we apologize, but we're going to say from our perspective what we know about what's going on, and we are going to share our thoughts. Yeah. So Mike, I will let you talk about what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you just said, and repeat that for myself. And just if it isn't already obvious, we are taking this extremely seriously, and I don't really I was even questioning whether or not to even talk about it, because I was am I too uncomfortable to talk about it? Because again, we're not experts, nothing like that, and this is just a football podcast for fun, right? I'm not trying to do this for any sort of reason for myself. It's just gotten to the point. Yeah, it's just gotten to the point where I feel like it needs to be talked about, and mostly in the complete aspect of mental health awareness. Because frankly, I've seen a lot of comments from Raider fans trying to make assumptions along the lines of oh, he's just mad because they drafted Tyree Wilson, or oh, he's just mad because Josh McDaniels did something and now he just wants to get cut. Like, you're clearly not looking at everything that's happening if that's your fucking assumption. I'm sorry. Like, there is something bigger than football going on, in my opinion, and I could be wrong. And that is something, again, we want to preface is like, I don't want to say anything and state it as fact other than the things that he put on Instagram, right? Those are facts. Those are things that he said, right? In the sense that I will read what he said. That is real. My opinion, or what I take from that, is my opinion, right? I just this whole situation is just so. I don't think I can remember many situations like this for like in the NFL, and I just think, again, as far as mental health awareness and stuff, like I've noticed a lot of things in recent years where it's like with in regards to mental health, with people having, I don't want to say the wrong word there, but like
Episodes.
things happen. Yeah, like, and it's just, there should be more awareness, and it should be common practice for help to be given, and provided. And luckily, well, in this situation, at the very least, it was attempted to be given. So I'll get into it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, why don't you, sort of fill us in on what exactly has transpired, or at least what we know has transpired.
So I don't know how many days ago. I'm sorry. Well, okay. Yeah, I still don't know. This would have been Tuesday. So first off, on Monday, Chandler Jones on Instagram. This is all from his Instagram, on his story. He puts a picture with his hand holding 2 boxes of Tom Ford glasses, and the caption says, "Drop by at Tom Ford to pick up some shades for my head coach and GM!" Exclamation point. "They knew me since I was a kid. Good vibes for the season," with a peace sign. Sounds positive, right? But then the very next day, things would go completely sour. I actually wonder that, or I wonder if this was a hint that something was coming because he's giving them shade. Right? So I don't know. Again, assumption.
That's a
right?
pretty good observation. But yeah, I mean, it could just be a coincidence.
Yeah. So there are times in these posts that he says the N-word. I'm obviously not going to repeat that. He says, fuck. This is the first thing he said on Tuesday morning. It started hitting Twitter and stuff like, oh, something's going on with Chandler Jones around like 8:30 a.m. But his first post that he put on his story was, fuck it. It's just a picture with like a lot of these are just, well, you're not going to be able to see that. Just a picture, like a blank picture with white caption, black letters. Fuck it. I don't want to play for the Raiders if that's my head coach or GM. ... I want Patrick Graham, Ivy League. A word that I cannot say. I think he's calling Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler Ivy League. And I guess what's interesting to me is he says, I want Patrick Graham. I'm assuming as his head coach. Okay. Like, bear in mind, this is all day one, and like, we have no idea what's going on, right? Next post, and some of these, I know I'm missing a few things, but just these are things that I find important. He says, they won't let me in the building though, trying to provoke a blank. In essence, they're trying to piss me off, and they won't let him in the building. And for some context, for at least, I think, 2 weeks, he was out of practice. And it was assumed that he had some sort of injury. And I feel like this has happened with, at least with the Raiders, with other players, where something happens, nothing is said as far as what the injury is. They're just out of practice for a week. Like, for example, Michael Mayer this past preseason. They don't give the context of what it is. He was just randomly out for like 2 straight weeks leading up to today, and it was dating back to right after the Niner game, I want to say, because I know he practiced in the joint practices with them, because Grant Cohn said that he showed out, like he was the best player, or other than Max Crosby, he was the best player on the field for the Raiders, just demolishing Raiders or Niners like right tackles and stuff. So why was he out of practice, right? That's definitely a bigger question now. So he says they're not letting him in the building as of Tuesday. And then he says, and they had direct contact to my baby mama, BM, and we ain't been together for 5 years. Some lady reporting to her about I was at work when I don't even talk to her, I'm assuming his ex-girlfriend, about work or anything. Like, how do you know my baby mama? Question mark. Provoked. Now, I saw that and I was like, yeah, that is weird. Why would a team contact your ex? Like, why would they contact your wife? That it doesn't make any sense, right? So I was, when I saw that, I was like, whoa, okay, this is definitely weird stuff going on with the Raiders. Really weird. But again, he says some lady reporting to her about how I was at work, blah 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 blah. Okay, so just some questions to ask. Why would the Raiders lock Chandler Jones out of the facility? Okay, I figured as of day one, it was because they didn't want him to get re-injured. They didn't want him using their equipment to get re-injured because of liability reasons in the contract. I don't know. But since then, I wonder, was he quietly suspended? Or did an incident occur that they determined you should not be here? Just don't come here. And then he tried to go there, and he was legitimately locked out, like the Jamal Adams from Hard Knocks years ago, right? And then, of course, the question, why would they contact his ex? And why about him being at work, right? Reporting that he's at work. What? Who gives a shit, right? Like, why would they ask her that? So just bear that in mind. Next up, he posted screenshots of texts just from him to first Dave Ziegler, and then it's shown in this text that he screenshotted it and sent that to Josh McDaniels. So I'll just read all of them. To Dave Ziegler, that's not nice. All of this is just from Chandler Jones. No response from either Dave Ziegler or Josh McDaniels in this screenshot. Chandler says, that's not nice. Love you anyway. 2 purple hearts. How do you expect me to play this season and I can't even get my GM on the phone? Thanks for that, portal. Should I call Josh, or will he not pick up either? Why y'all bring me to Vegas? To play with me? That's in the screenshot, and then that was sent to Josh McDaniels. He says to Josh McDaniels, I sent this to your roomie with a kissy face and a heart. And then his next text to Josh McDaniels is, it's a shame that I am a top athlete with 112 sacks in the NFL, and I have to go to a local gym to work out during the season for no apparent reason. This is wild to me, Josh, and you know it. You need to do what's right. That's what Chandler Jones said to Josh McDaniels. No response, according to the screenshot from Josh McDaniels or Ziegler. So, like, that's interesting. Why are they not responding to him? Right? That seems not cool. That seems like they're not very good at being personable with their players, right? That would certainly be the public and the media's response, and that's the thing that they'll go with, right? Is like, oh, Josh McDaniels, see, right? But so yeah, why wouldn't they reply? Are they busy? Are they not good at communicating to players? Is this, again, since everything else has happened, I wonder, is this their protocol that they have to go through? Do they not want him to use their responses against them? Like say on Instagram, you know? Um, yeah. So next up, Chandler Jones wrote a literal page worth, like in a little like notebook, a full page worth of this almost story. And he titled it, "I used to think my idols were crazy." I'm not going to read the whole thing. You could find it probably somewhere on Twitter, X, or Instagram. But basically, these idols that he's talking about, these idols of his, first one makes total sense. And even the second one, John Bones Jones, his very own brother, exceptional UFC fighter, right?
Yeah.
Number two was Kanye West, Yeezy. His favorite song growing up was Jesus Walks, right? And like I totally understand. Kanye West made some of the best music ever, right? Especially in that time, I'm sure. But number three uh, uh, is Antonio Brown, and number four is Alden Smith. And in parentheses next to Antonio Brown and Alden Smith, it says problems with Raiders staff on this note. I'll read the last part of his note. It's, these men were being provoked, and I believe were afraid to talk about it, but were put on blast when they react. Well, it's now my turn. I've been provoked for 12 years, so not just with the Raiders. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. And a key word that he used was crucified for these other people, John Jones and Kanye West in the media. And for obvious reasons, Antonio Brown and Alden Smith. I'm not even going to lie. When I read this note initially, and like I didn't have a better sense of what was going on, my initial reaction to this was like, are you serious? Like, I can't actually take this seriously if you're going to say Antonio Brown and Alden Smith are like two of your idols, right? So at the end, he says, "I am Chandler Jones, not number 55." And I get it. Like he's tired of being looked at like an item, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in his mind or in his positioning to know what that's like, but I get that. Like I see what he means, right? But still, it was just interesting to me that he felt the need to write in pen on a piece of paper his, "I used to think my idols were crazy, ... And then Kanye, Antonio Brown, Alden Smith, right? Um, and then either before or after this, he put one on his Instagram live saying, "I want to have a powwow with at AB, Antonio Brown, and at Alden Smith." Like he wanted, I don't really know exactly what powwow means, but I'm assuming it means like I want to talk to them. I want to hang out with them. And like, clearly from his previous things, he's upset with the Raiders. And his thought process is, I want to talk to Antonio Brown and Alden Smith about this.
So the informal definition of powwow is a conference or meeting for discussion, especially among friends or colleagues.
Okay, so he wants to literally talk about this with them, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Bear in mind, I don't remember how everything ended with Alden Smith and the Raiders, but I'm pretty sure his problems were not with the Raiders, but with higher authority in the United States of America, to put it simply. And then Antonio Brown, I don't even want to make this a negative thing. It's just, in hindsight, I was very upset at this. I should say in hindsight. Before getting more info, I was very upset at this. I was like, dude, seriously? And just the fact that this was happening to the Raiders, it was like, of course this is happening, right? Of course this is happening. And of course everybody's going to take a massive shit on Josh McDaniels now. Yada, 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 right? Like, I'm not like a super fan of Josh McDaniels. He still needs to prove things to me, but at least give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, don't just immediately, like, day one be like, well, they made the wrong choice. Fuck it. They suck. He sucks. Like, come on. So I'm pretty sure that was about it. He also posted a picture of himself, not himself, but of that note being burnt in flames. Like, he lit it on fire after writing it. It was actually a cool photo, but it was like, why? Right. So then that was it. He deletes everything within like 20 minutes. And it just felt like, oh, he has a major issue with the Raiders. Clearly he wants to be cut. That's what's going on. He's just
Or traded.
And like, hey, he's locked out of the facility. He has no way of communicating to the team apparently. So this is his final resort, I assume. Although I still wonder where his agent falls in line with all of this. Because usually what players do is they would go to their agent, I would assume. And then their agent would probably go to the team and say, yes, we are demanding a trade. And if the team doesn't respond or the team says, no, we're not going to trade you, then what does that agent do? He goes to Adam Schefter. He goes to Ian Rappaport, and he lets it be known to the media that way, right? That's essentially the professional way to do it. So day one, I was like, well, this is kind of unprofessional. But it's clear that Chandler Jones feels a certain type of way about everything. So, okay, let's see where this goes, right? So that happened, and then came day two. Chandler Jones posts on his Instagram, he posts a picture of a lady's ID badge for the City of Las Vegas, Nevada Fire and Rescue CRT team. And I'll get back to that. His post said, Raiders sent her to my place, said, you need to come with us, quote unquote, you're in danger, with a laughing emoji. Like he's laughing at it. Like that's hilarious, right? And he took a picture of her badge. Like it says her name. You can search up her name on the internet and see what her profession is. So I did. Her name's Heather Thainpone. And she is the clinical program manager for the Crisis Response Team, CRT, in Las Vegas, Nevada. CRT is a collaboration of government, private, and nonprofit organizations providing on-scene medical and mental health responses to psychiatric emergencies dispatched through the 911 system. So Chandler Jones literally put it on Instagram that the Raiders felt the need to send a mental health crisis team to his house because, I'm assuming, they were concerned about his mental health and his well-being, right? But he's laughing at it, and I don't want to make assumptions. It's interesting. So he says next, they had me outside in my drawers, underwear, LOL, naked. That lady was rude. Then I got to showing her some of them texts, I'm assuming some of my texts with Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, and then she switched up. Buddy from the Raiders, apparently somebody from the Raiders was there, tried to give me the look like, don't say anything. And then in his next one, he says, now I understand why players turn to social media. At first, I frowned upon it, but it's our only outlet. And I get that. If I didn't do this, it would have been kept under wraps. Anybody interview them and ask why I'm not on with the team? ? Because I don't know, he says. And then he says, y'all interview them 3 police officers. I invited them into my home. We 3 had private conversations. The other, I'm assuming the guy from the Raiders, stayed outside with the bugs, LOL, and then 2 emojis with stars in their face, like happy faces, you know. I mean, just based off of that, okay, if I didn't do this, it would have been kept under wraps. Yeah, it seems as though whatever's going on, the Raiders did not want this to get public. They had him just off the team with an injury designation, I'm assuming, and no word on it, right? And I'm assuming if he hadn't gone on social media, he would have been inactive for week 1, and everybody would have wondered, whoa, what the fuck? Like, what is his injury? Like, come on, tell us, right? And I also have to note, like, you know, we talked about the 54-man roster for the Raiders having an exempt thing for Josh Jacobs. I just find it interesting that they have that, and Chandler Jones is on the roster. If anybody should be exempt, it's him. And obviously, I'm curious what's going to happen moving forward, leaning into week 1. And I'm pretty sure, again, we're still at 54, so somebody has to get cut or put on IR or something, or on an exempt list. But okay, so if I didn't do this, this would have been kept under wraps. Yeah, that's true. Did anybody interview them and ask why I'm not on with the team? Well, after this happened, yes. And Josh McDaniels gave a pretty, you know, what you would expect response. I actually don't have it. If you could possibly pull it up, that'd be cool. Just Josh McDaniels' response, Chandler Jones, or something like that. Max Crosby had a really good answer to a question about that, though.
They're keeping it in-house.
Yeah, it was just really quick and to the point. It was really inaudible at first when he was asked the question. I think he said to the guy, "You know, I can't answer that." Like, he laughed, like, "You know, I can't answer that." And then he said, "But, you know, it's all in-house. I think he said we're good," or something like that. Like, it was just a quick and like chill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, they can't answer it. Like, of course they're not going to answer it. And of course, Josh McDaniels isn't going to say anything negative. It's a horrible look. Go ahead and play.
Is this the one?
Yeah, it should be.
I'm not going to talk about that's kind of a personal situation. And as a, we've never really gone into, those kind of things. So I'm going to steer away from that. It's a private matter. And, if there's something to report on it, then, we'll do that. But as of right now, no.
Right now, okay.
There's nothing to talk about. No, I don't. Right now we're going day to day. So, he's not going to be here today. So we'll kind of take it one day at a time.
Did it warrant some sort of a talk with the team to kind of
Yeah, I'm not going to get into this. You know what I mean? So it's a personal situation. It's a private matter. Want to talk about the game on Sunday? I'll be excited to talk about the game.
Affects the game though, Joe. One of your captains and your leaders.
Yeah, he's not a captain. So it is what it is. Like I said, we're dealing with it internally. We've dealt with it, but we're not gonna get into this. I'm not gonna talk about that's kind of a situation. And
I didn't see that second part of that video actually. I only heard
about
the first
him
part.
saying he's not a captain.
Yeah, he's not a captain and stuff like that. This whole thing's interesting, but
I don't know the way he said it. He's not a captain. It kind of sounded like there's a little bit like it was like a guided response, or like there was like a little something to it.
Right.
I don't know. He could have worded it like, he's not going to be a captain this year. Like I said, this is private. I really don't know what to make of this entire situation, but do you have more to add to like what's actually going on before we start, speculating or talking about like, what it could mean?
Yeah, there is just two more, I think, photo things that he put. And it's directly correlated to Josh McDaniels. He put another screenshot of his text with McDaniels on his Instagram. This is on the day 2 thing, yesterday, I think. This is on Friday, August 18th. This is when the texts, went back and forth at 9:05 a.m. Friday, August 18th. So, when can you find out when was the Niners preseason game with the Raiders? What day did that fall on?
I want to say it was the 13th. So let's see here.
Just to further give like a timeline,
Past Sunday was draft day. The 27th was the Charger game. 20th was the Broncos. The 13th was the Raiders.
Okay, so. Ooh, wow, that's right. Okay. So the 13th was the Raider game. Raiders versus Niners. And then I forget what day that fell on, but it doesn't matter. Immediately after the Niner game, I want to say the very next day was a Monday, and they flew to LA to do joint practices with the Rams. And I remember for a fact Chandler Jones did not fly with the team. So that's when this started. Was at some point between the Rams joint practices and the Niners joint practices or preseason game. So on Friday, August 18th, Chandler Jones texted Josh McDaniels, Josh, didn't want to come off as rude, disrespectful, or above you, period. I know my place. I just honestly felt those ways and thought it was okay to let you know. That is all, it's always love, brother. Josh McDaniels responded, lot to work through, ... We'll let you know the timeline, ... Please be available if Dave or I or anyone else from the organization reaches out, ... And then Chandler Jones's response was always, and he kind of, emphasized McDaniel's text with the exclamation points. And then below that is a picture or video of tape from the joint practices with the Niners. I could see clearly it's Christian McCaffrey on the screen. So he was trying to talk tape with McDaniels as well. And then in the bottom left corner, this is from his Instagram now. Chandler Jones says, y'all send another one over here, another person to his house over here, and I'm going to start sharing videos live from my other phone. I'm going to be nice, Josh. I wanted to play Sunday. If you let me play, he misspelled. If you let me play, I won't share anything else. Like he's trying to blackmail Josh McDaniels through Instagram. Let me play, and I won't do anything else. Right? I won't share any other information. I won't share any other text messages.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting tactic. And then his next post was, y'all see how Buddy talked to me like I'm an item? LMAO, look at my text and look at his. And I get what he's saying. Like, Chandler Jones was very apologetic, and I guess the right word might be like personable. And like, hey, I know my place, and I'm sorry. Honestly, just felt those ways and thought it was okay to let you know. And then Josh McDaniels was very like, ... We'll let you know the timeline, ... Please be available, ... Like I absolutely get what Chandler Jones is saying in this one. Like, and I see how he can respond to that in a negative way of like, dude, you're just looking at me like an employee at this point, or like, no, not just an employee, but like a number, like number 55. I'm Chandler Jones, not number 55, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems clear to me, that was the last one again. It seems clear to me that something happened. Chandler Jones definitely said something verbally to Josh McDaniels at some point. That's why he was apologizing to Josh McDaniels. And, I mean, Friday, August 18th, that had to be during Rams joint practices when he was already not with the team anymore. So he's already been, I'm assuming, quietly suspended by the team. And he's trying to, hey, Josh, I'm sorry. Please let me back, And Josh McDaniels is like, a lot to work through here. We'll let you know the timeline. Just be available. Like, but also bear in mind, he's the head coach. He's a busy guy, right? Like, yes, you would like to see somebody be a little bit more personable, a little bit more emotional, but yeah, he's got business to attend to, and this actually is business that he's attending to, and quite frankly, he might be pissed off at him for whatever Chandler Jones did. So, very interesting situation. Yeah, as far as like, the mental health aspect and just the Chandler Jones aspect, like, again, not a professional on health or mental health. So I don't want to make the grandest assumption, but I can say that I think this feels out of character for Chandler Jones, a 12-year NFL veteran who, his brother is also a very famous athlete. Like, I think he would know a thing or two about going about these things in the professional way, right? And again, I mean, my biggest question in all of this, other than like what is going on with him, is like, where is his agent? Who is his agent? I have no idea. That's the one person in the situation that's just not a part of this whole thing. One other thing that he did was he unfollowed the Raiders in like every possible way on social media. He also unfollowed Max Crosby, apparently, which is interesting. It makes you wonder if somehow Crosby was involved, but I doubt it. I mean, Crosby's a leader, so maybe something big happened, and Crosby was trying to kind of like, hey, whoa, like, chill out or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. That's just an assumption, right? But based off of the evidence that Chandler Jones is just supplying us, something happened. And I think what happened was something out of character for him and probably directed at Josh McDaniels, and he got quietly suspended. And I think, based off of what I see, that the Raiders understand or understood that whatever incident happened, it was not something that Chandler Jones would usually do, and they were under the not assumption, but they saw that something was off, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming at first they just told him like, hey, can't be around the facility, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's because they don't want him to be a distraction to the team. Like, he shows up and he's just like, for all we know, he could be acting out. I don't know, right? But again, I mean, they sent a crisis health team to his house. Maybe they're worried that he's something worse, right? And maybe they don't want that near the facility, if you kind of catch my drift. Again, assumptions. I'm not trying to, say the wrong things or anything. It's just until we get all the information, which, if I'm being honest, we probably never will, and we probably never should. But until we did get all of the information, we don't know. But based off of the evidence that Chandler Jones himself is providing, I think I have an idea of what's going on. And it's sad. And I just hope for the best for him. And I think with these sorts of things, others can help only so much. But if you are in a state mentally that you do not believe you are in, right? I'm good, right? He posted a video the day one. He was like, I'm good in the mirror. Because probably people were asking him like, hey, are you okay? Right? I don't want to say this word, but I'm just going to say it. If you're in denial, of what's going on, that isn't good. As far as getting help, right? Because the Raiders can send help to your house. But if you if you don't want to take part in that, then there can't be help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the police are there to make sure that he's not a danger to himself or others. And if he's, again, based off of what I see, and then I also I want to make one last point in defense of the Raiders, because I've seen, I saw an assumption, or not assumption, but like a reaction of like, oh, of course the Raiders would send a crisis health team to his house. Way to save face. Okay. So you're saying that after that first day, when he put all that stuff on Instagram, right? Oh, he's locked out of the facility. That looks so bad on the team. That's just Josh McDaniels, blah, 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 right? That the Raiders sent a crisis health team to his house to save face and make him look like the fall guy, like, oh, see, he's whatever, right? Did they, by any chance, send a team full of cameramen to document this? No. Chandler Jones put this on the internet, not the Raiders. They weren't doing it to save face. I'm assuming they were doing it because they're concerned. So it sucks. And frankly, I'm concerned. Like, that, I was looking forward to seeing him on Sunday if he were healthy. And now this is brought in the limelight, and I realize, like, okay, one of the players for this team is going through something. Yeah, and again, like day one, the reaction was like, oh, why is he locked out? That's really odd. Maybe they're trying to trade him. Maybe they don't want him to get re-injured, right? But like, I think with everything that he posted the next day, it became a lot more clear to me. But I think that's about all I have about that, other than I hope whatever happens, he comes out of this good and healthy and safe and everything. And hopefully it all works out. I don't know what's going to happen. We will see. But at the end of the day, the most important thing here is his health and everybody's health involved. So,
So real quick, I'm going to give my thoughts, and we're going to try and wrap up the show here. I just want to say again, I don't know exactly what's going on, and like Mike said, we may never know what's going on with this situation.
And I could be completely off on everything.
Mm-hmm. Given everything that you have laid out, I think we talked a little bit about it earlier today.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about like mental health and, stuff like that. I was willing to, I guess, entertain that notion a little bit earlier, and that could full on be the reality. But we don't know exactly what went on. But I think Josh McDaniels and or somebody on the Raiders did something to provoke Chandler Jones and piss him off. And then Josh McDaniels clearly suspended Chandler Jones from the team, or, told him that he couldn't be with the team. I mean, and I could, like I said, I could be completely wrong about that. And Chandler Jones is taking to social media because he has seen the way that other players and other athletes and his other idols have been treated like they're crazy. And he wants his side of the story out and about. So that way, I mean, like you said, he's been out for a while now. And everybody might question that. And knowing the NFL, there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that that people don't know about. I think Chandler Jones wants to be human and to be, I mean, from what it sounds like here, I think that I think he wants to play football on Sunday. And maybe there is some sort of financial thing that he might miss out on by not playing on Sunday. Right? And he also doesn't want a future opportunity with another team to be, I guess, taken away from him or ruined because the narrative around him is that, he can't stay on the field or that he's a diva, blah, blah, blah. I think he's trying to save face. Now, granted, other teams are not going to want a problem like this regardless. So him taking to social media isn't necessarily the best look, but he even mentioned he understands why other players do this because it's their only outlet to go to. I see, if it was a mental health situation, one thing that doesn't add up to me is Chandler Jones said that there was a Raiders person giving him like a look, like not to say something to the crisis person. And if they were so worried about his mental health, you're supposed to, if that's a therapist or whatever, you're supposed to get things off your chest. You're supposed to be able to say whatever, and it's supposed to be confidential. What could the Raiders want Chandler Jones to not mention to this crisis person, the fire and rescue person? That, to me, that doesn't make sense, and that's a red flag. Also, I think, it's entirely possible that it is a mental health issue, but I'm not so eager, or I guess I'm not so quick to jump the gun to let the Raiders off the hook and then just assume that this is one of those issues. I think more likely it's not. But what's weird is Chandler Jones has worked with Josh McDaniels before. But I think there is something that happened that set off Chandler Jones, and he just wants to play. And for whatever reason, Josh McDaniels is not letting it happen. Who knows? Maybe this could be over a trade dispute. Maybe they're trying to trade Chandler Jones. And Chandler Jones is like, man, why did they bring me to Vegas if they were just going to trade me?
Right.
And then that's why Chandler Jones was like, I just want to be in the facility. And then he's like, we have a lot to work through. Be ready if anybody, if I or Dave or anybody on the Raiders needs you. And I feel like this is a situation where Chandler Jones got disrespected by the Raiders, and he feels dehumanized, like he's just another number rather than a human being. And what he doesn't want is to be painted as the next Antonio Brown, the next Alden Smith. And these are guys, the next Kanye West, the next, like his brother. And I think that he knows these people personally too. And that's why he wants to have a conversation with them, because we know the Raiders didn't handle, Antonio Brown, for the most part, what it seems like the narrative is that he handled it terribly. We never really got Antonio Brown's situation. We never got his side of the story, and I don't know if there is his side of the story for there to be told. I didn't even know Alden Smith had trouble with the Raiders. I just thought that he had.
I still don't know if he did. That's kind of the thing. There was a lot of legal issues ongoing. So, and okay, if we're going to talk under the assumption that he's not having a mental health thing going on. And I'm really glad that you're saying all of this because like I don't want to just make this like a one-sided thing. I'm just going based off of the evidence and kind of what I'm seeing. And maybe I am choosing to see it from the Raiders' eye. I don't know. But I've seen things that like this happen before. And I'm not going to get into that at all. Just I'm not going to say what I think is going on because I'm not a mental health expert, and I just refuse to say anything like that. I don't even fucking remember my point. I just okay. If we're under the assumption that he's not having that going on, like a mental thing going on, his way of like justifying his reasoning for going to social media, again, rather than simply going to his agent and doing it the way that it probably should be done, if he wanted to get off this team, right? Like make sure that Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport report that, oh, Chandler Jones is demanding a trade, right? He's referring to justify himself to Kanye West. I know nothing about John Jones, so I can't say anything, but Kanye West, I've seen plenty of things from him. And now, granted, I had a conversation with my sister about Kanye West, and it's like he has... I'm pretty sure it's known that he has mental health things.
I think he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but do not quote me on that.
I think you're correct.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah. And, but then, and that makes it like the things that Kanye has done, like, I'm not going to like overly fault him or anything like that, or call him like any names, right? Antonio Brown, because it all happened with the Raiders, I have very negative thoughts towards him, but I also understand, and in a human way, I humanize him in the sense that like I have a similar thought process of like something's probably not right mentally with Antonio Brown. And like for the longest time, I figured it was just his ego. He just has a massive elephant trunk ego. And, you know, that was because, you know, he started from nothing, undrafted, I want to say, maybe 7th round pick, and became the best wide receiver in football. Like that can certainly build up an ego, right? But then, you know, everybody, like the ongoing notion on Twitter is like, oh, that dude's got CTE, right? And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, right? Like that's just a thing. But, and then Alden Smith, legal issues, right? And I guess my thing with Antonio Brown was like everything he did with the Raiders to get off the team were things that he did, right? And maybe behind closed doors, the Raiders were really shitty to him. But from what I remember, the Raiders traded for him because he demanded a trade from the Steelers. And they gave him a reset the market contract, you know, for a wide receiver. Like they made him the highest paid player. And then he proceeded to do everything he possibly could to get off the team. And I'm assuming specifically to become a free agent and play for the Patriots and Tom Brady, who he then later posted things on Instagram about like his wife or ex-wife, Tom Brady's. But that's completely separate from Chandler Jones. Alden Smith, you know, again, Chandler Jones is making justification to himself doing this and using Alden Smith as an example. Alden Smith, he just had problem with the law. Like there's no way around that. Like it's not like it's the Raiders were out for Alden Smith. It's like, dude, when he was on the Niners, he was having issues with the law. I don't really understand your point here. My whole point to this is, from my perspective, Chandler Jones is acting way out of character. And you could totally be right that something happened and it totally triggered him. And now they're just like shutting doors on him and disconnecting communication. And he's pissed and his agent can't do anything about it. Although I still believe that if he tried, we would have gotten a report that Chandler Jones demands a trade, right? But we didn't. So he takes to social media, and that makes sense. Like, I understand, like, that is, for famous people, a very huge outlet to get your opinion voiced. And I'm not going to sit here and say that what I think is fact. I don't know. I mean, based off of that text, I saw Chandler Jones apologizing to Josh McDaniels, but maybe that's because he's the player and Josh McDaniels is the coach. He's trying to get back on the team. So, hey, maybe something did happen where it was the roles reversed and Josh or somebody else did something wrong to him and he responded, and that, you hear the, like, it's always the person who pushes back or punches back that gets in trouble, right? Maybe that's what happened.
So that text where he apologized to McDaniels was August 23rd, you said?
19th.
August
18th.
19th or 18th, around that time. It's been a couple weeks now, and the season's about to start, and Chandler Jones has not been with the team.
Yeah, he's literally locked out of the facilities.
He's locked out of the facilities, and he probably feels disrespected. And, I think there's more to it than just a mental health episode, but you could be right about that. And, hopefully we find out more, because I'm very intrigued, because, I mean, the Raiders are like practically the only team that this type of shit consistently happens to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's got to be, and this situation itself could be it is an entirely different situation, but when you factor in other problematic, instances in the past, it's just it's a pattern. And at a certain point, where does the buck stop? Right? Did I use the term correctly? The buck stops at you, or?
I think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, I one thought that I had on the first day, I think, was like, what if this is like, what if whatever's going on is like something that Chandler Jones is like trying to voice his frustrations with McDaniels and Ziegler, but really, what if like the person who's always been, in a way, some way or another, the reason for this bullshit to always happen to the Raiders is like Mark Davis, just like being a horrible leader. But I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to believe that they can have this consistent of issues, of like really shitty issues like this with players, and it's because of like a trend. It's a trend because of something in-house. I really, like, because it's a trend, I might be in the minority, but I don't see how it can keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. That just doesn't make sense. And with a new regime, now it's McDaniels and Ziegler. It used to be John Gruden and Mayock, when Henry Ruggs, Antonio Brown, right? Like, yes, I agree. Like, the biggest thing, other than my concern for Chandler Jones, to me is my initial reaction was like, why the fuck does this always happen to this fucking team? To this team that I wear every fucking day on my body, that I care the most about in sports. Why? It's so fucking annoying. But again, I think this one's a little different, and I don't know. But yes, like I said before, I don't think we're ever going to get the full context. I think when you listen to Josh McDaniels in the press conference, his initial response is, nah, it's personal. We're not going to talk about that. Does he mean that it's personal for him? Or what I think is it's personal for Chandler Jones. And out of respect to him, and just because it's unprofessional if they do talk about it, they're not going to talk about that, period.
Mm-hmm. What is he supposed to say if he's not going to give an answer, though? The easiest way out is it's personal. I'm not going to talk about it, right? Whether it's personal or not, the easiest way, because nobody's going to ask about it if you say it's personal. It's like pretty much saying it's off limits. Don't talk about it, right?
Hmm.
Like, what's he going to say? Like, yeah, we pissed off Chandler, or yeah, Chandler's going through a mental health crisis. Like, if it is a mental health crisis, he's saying the right thing. It's a personal matter. Not gonna touch on it. And if it is a scandal, I mean, other than coming out and saying that, up front, like if they're gonna cover it up, they're gonna say, yeah, it's a personal matter. We're not touching those questions. I'm not gonna talk about it.
Right. My point there is, like, when I hear him say it's personal, I take it as this is personal for Chandler, and we cannot get into it because it's so personal, because it's so, like, this should be private. That's the term personal that I take from it, is like, this is a personal thing for him. Just like if I told you a secret that's personal to me, I would expect you not to tell anybody else, right? In this case, it's like, because this is a huge sports entertainment thing, it's like, this is personal. Like, we're not getting into that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then my biggest evidence that makes me fall in the way that I feel is the fact that the Raiders, after he started posting on Instagram, sent a health crisis team to his house. Again, if they were trying to save face, that's not the way to do it. If they wanted to scapegoat him and make him, be crucified by the media, they would do something else, not send help to his house. They sent help to his house, and it's not like Raiders.com is posting videos of health crisis team at his house or something like that. Obviously they're not, but still, like, they didn't do it for publicity. They just did it, and he publicized it because, however you want to call it, right? Because he is doing what he's doing. He feels the way he feels, whatever it is. But he publicized it, not them. And I take a lot from that, because that feels like that would be exceptionally out of character. If I were in a situation like that, and I post some things that are essentially in this business unprofessional on social media, and then the next day, like, they send me a health crisis team, I hate to say this, but, like, I would be embarrassed. I wouldn't want to share that with the world. Now, I get it if his mentality is, I'm gonna show the world everything that they're doing to me. But, like, he hasn't shown the bad thing that happened to him that provoked him and caused him to get internally suspended or whatever happened. Wouldn't you think that he would have done that by now if Josh did something to him, other than be robotic with him, right? That's all he's shown. And that he's not responding to him. He's locked out of the facilities, yada, yada, yada. The way that he's acting, to me, is out of character.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all he's shown. It's just all that we know.
It's all that he's shown to the public.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if he wanted to really justify himself, wouldn't he show the really bad thing that they've said to him?
No,
At this
because
point,
he's still
fuck
on
it.
the team. He wants to play.
Yeah, but he could just get cut. Like, and that, I mean, that's what I thought was happening
There's probably
initially.
something in the contract, like, it won't
Maybe.
be something. It won't be something that will be talked about until probably later down the line, or if he's on another team, and he probably still won't talk about it. But like we're talking about, like it could involve even the owner, right? It could.
Because
And do you really want to fucking like fuck with a billionaire? They might send a mental health person to your house. But here's what I'll say about
yeah,
about
but why? But why would they?
Because he's pissed. All right.
No, but what is their reasoning for sending that?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Maybe they think he's having a mental health crisis, but he's pissed off.
Okay.
Maybe he's not having a mental health breakdown. And maybe them sending that person just pissed him off even more. Like, oh, they fucking think I'm crazy. Look at this shit. Like, I'm just pissed off. I want to play. I want to return to the team. You guys aren't letting me in the gym. And he's sending all these text messages and he's posting all this shit. They send this person to my fucking house. They're contacting my baby mama. Like,
and that's another one. Like, that was weird to me the first day because I didn't have context. And then when I get more context, it's like, oh, they contacted her because they were concerned about him because he's away from the facility.
Or they contacted her like, hey, what has he been saying?
He said that they said that he was at work, probably when he wasn't supposed to be. Maybe they were contacting her to pick him up. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, and we can talk in circles like about what it could be all day, but we just don't know.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is him being upset could fall in line with, okay, like I said, like we both said, something happened, right? And maybe it was something that Josh McDaniels did upset him, right? But maybe he did something and he feels like, well, what he cares about is playing, right? But let's just say he's going through what essentially I think he's going through. Essentially, it seems like he's in denial that he did something wrong, right? And why am I still being blamed for this, blah, blah, blah. But I just, from the things that I don't want to say it. I just hope for the best. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to completely rule out the possibility that it is. I'm just saying, I feel like my interpretation of it might be a little bit more realistic of what's actually going on, but it doesn't mean that it's for a fact the reality. Your guess is as good as mine. Another thing I'll say, and this will be like the last thing, about something about the Raiders has been rubbing people the wrong way for a long time. And one recent example that I can point to was when Grant was on recently, and he talked about how Greg Papa was pissed because of how far the media was. And this is the media, right? These aren't people who are hired by the Raiders. These aren't anybody who has any significance to the Raiders. But Greg Papa used to be very connected with that organization, and they wouldn't let him go anywhere near the practice. And Greg Papa went over to the side and, according to Grant, said, "Can you believe this? You don't treat people like that." So, and that's just Greg Papa. That's just the media. And clearly the media is going to get different treatment. But I guess my point for bringing it up is that there has been something going on with the front office, or maybe it's Mark Davis or something, where they just continue to rub people the wrong way. Antonio Brown, now, Chandler Jones, if you want to include Greg Papa on that list. I don't think John Gruden was against the Raiders. He's more against the NFL. But it's a recurring theme, and I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that this is a case where they just pissed him off and he wants to let the world know, like, the corruption that's been going on.
At the end of the day, we don't for sure know anything other than what's been posted on Instagram. But yeah, moral of the story is I hope everything works out for Chandler, and obviously other than that, it's just football time.
It is football time. And you know what else time it is?
12:48.
No, it's time to please comment, like, and subscribe. And then also, real quick, one last comment. Fonzie, this was back an hour ago. Exactly 1 hour ago, Fonzie Valencia said, "Hey, what's up, guys? Fonzie, thank you for tuning back in. I recognize you commenting on one of the previous streams, so we appreciate you for checking out, the stream. Other than that, I mean, I just also want to say Mike and I are not, like, mad at each other, even though we maybe view this a little bit differently. And I mean, for all we know, both of us could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I know for a fact one thing, and that's that there is a lot more information that has not been released. And it could go any random direction, knowing this team. So I'm not ruling anything out. Moral of my story is I think it could have been handled better by
both sides.
Yeah, I mean, after seeing Josh McDaniels' comments, I feel like the second half of that was not the best, as far as, like, well, he's not a captain, like, he didn't have to say that. So in that sense, yes, but, like, I haven't seen anything from the organization other than, according to Chandler Jones, that they sent a health crisis response team to his house. So I don't know. And we don't know what situation provoked all of this. So until we know that, we won't know really what's going on unless something happens that really makes it, like, really obvious, or is just point blank said by somebody, like, of official standing, and that probably won't happen unless it's Chandler Jones.
It'll come out in a documentary about 20 years down the line.
You know what this reminds me of? You know what this reminds me of? Because I know we've been talking about, like, Antonio Brown and all these sorts of things. Just a year or two ago, Minnesota Vikings had a defensive end. He was a veteran, like, same circumstance, like 12 years in the league. Forgetting his name.
Was it Danielle Hunter?
No, it was the other guy. Hold on. Vikings defensive end. Come on. Not Danielle Hunter. Dude, are you serious? Ngakwe. That's funny. Not him.
Everson Griffin.
Yes. Something happened with him. And he ended up like coming out and announcing yeah, I've sought help after what has happened, essentially. Let me see. Again, I don't know what's going on, so I'm not, it's just that just everything now reminds me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm not going to talk about it. Just if you want to search it up, you can search up Everson Griffin, whatever his last name is, incident, and that is that.
Yeah. But honestly, I think the show went pretty well today.
No, it did. It did. From here on out, it'll be a lot shorter.
Yeah.
As long as we don't get any more catastrophes with the Raiders.
Let's pray that we don't have to do another long show talking about Chandler Jones ever again. Let's pray that it just all gets resolved. Chandler Jones is able to play on Sunday. Josh McDaniels names him a captain. And, we all move past this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see how this all goes. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And well, not just I am hopeful that everything ends out okay, and I am very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's the show. All right.
Just win, baby. On to Sunday.
I'm ready for football on Sunday. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Silver and Gold.